Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 261, Flashpoint Special number 2. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. September is coming with new number ones. 52 titles seek to capture our funds. JSA is missing, I'm kind of sad, but Blue Beetle is back and looking oh so bad. Before we can get there, Flashpoint is here. Tracy 13 Booster, Barry seek what we hold dear. The sensei is worried he might be retconned as well. To someone who finds Bridges exciting and swell, so says the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going?
Flashpoint. Ooh, I'm excited for this one. We're going to talk about Flashpoint number 2, Booster Gold through issue 45, and the number 1 issues of each of the first wave of these series. And please look into the show notes to make sure that we're not covering something that you haven't gotten to. But it's like the first 8-ish Flashpoint titles, I think it was 8 issues, that we're going to be discussing on this episode. So please look in the show notes because I'll have it detailed there exactly which issues we've covered in this episode. Because some of them we're talking about loosely. Obviously, we're going to talk about things like Batman, Emperor, Aquaman, Secret 7, Abin Sewer. I'm going to forget one in their World of Flashpoint. So I'm forgetting 1 or 2 in there as I'm going through that list, so please make sure to check the show notes. But really a lot to discuss with Flashpoint in this initial episode. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over DCBService.com, Flash the Road to Flashpoint hardcover. It's issues 8 to 12 that's the lead up to the Flashpoint series. So if you missed this one, you were into Flash Reader and you've been reading Flashpoint, and you're like, oh, I'd love to see the events that built right up to this. Definitely pick up this hardcover. It's regularly $22.99. 40% off, only $13.79, so it's a great way to pick up a cool hardcover at a discount. It's Jeff Johns, Francis Manapul, and Scott Collins, so definitely check that one out. Over at InStockTrades.com, Booster Gold, Day of Death, the trade paperback. Collecting Booster Gold 20 to 25 and Brave and the Bold number 23. And this is Booster Gold investigating the death of Batman, only to run afoul of another Batman who doesn't want Booster near this case. This is Dan Jurgens and Keith Giffen, with art by Dan Jurgens and Pat Olive and Norm Ratman. This is a 160-page trade paperback that's regularly $14.99. 38% off, only $9.29. And Booster Gold has been a very cool part of Flashpoint. So if you haven't been reading Booster Gold, it's a great way to pick this up from InStockTrades.com. So I want to thank DCBService.com, our comic book pre-order source, and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
We are a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot with the comics we're reviewing in the show. So if you haven't read something we're going over, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some Flashpoint.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
Jim, our first review this episode, we're going to be chatting about Flashpoint number 2. Our big event is here. And it's funny how this series, this event, has taken on a whole different life for me because we were excited leading up to this because we knew there were going to be some changes. And I thought some of this was going to bleed back into the DC Universe. I had no idea that this was going to lead into, I don't know, reboot, relaunch, whatever you want to call this. Because I guess DC doesn't want to call it like a full reboot because it's technically not. So I get the best, safest way to call it is a relaunch of all of the titles.
See, I'm calling it a refresh.
Okay, so what do you? Okay, let's then tell me what you term a refresh. How does it look to you?
Here's what, because when I first saw the news, I was thinking it was going to be a relaunch where everything goes back to square one, and we're at year one Batman. I was thinking it's going to be that kind of stories being told, and then as a little bit more details, it's still the same stories. There's still a lot of the same history going through. It's just been freshened up. It's been, it's going to be brought modern day, brought to date and kind of just updated. So it's, as we're talking about de-aging the some of the heroes, kind of just freshening them up a little bit, but we're still going to have the big events that occurred. Now we're going to lose some of the big events. Obviously, we're not going to have Killing Joke, because Barbara Gordon is going to be Batgirl. So she's not going to be Oracle. She's not going to be paralyzed. But I'm taking it we still have already had the Sinestro Corps War, Brightest Day, the whole War of the Green Lanterns. All of that stuff will have occurred. Probably, I'm betting that Hal would have had the whole Parallax story going through, and I'm thinking we're going to see all of that type of stories have already occurred. So it's not a relaunch in saying that everything's going away. It's just freshening some stuff, updating it, kind of probably clearing up some of the clutter that's happened over the years.
What about Jason Todd? Will Jason Todd have died and come back?
I'm thinking yes, because they're showing him as Red Hood, and they're having him be just that disgruntled Robin. So I think we're going to have it where all of the previous Robins were Robins. It's just like Tim Drake probably had less time than what he actually had. What we're used to, there was less time of Tim Drake as Robin. And, Dick Grayson, went from Dick to Jason, from Jason to Tim. I think we're probably going to be losing Stephanie Brown altogether, which kind of stinks for me because I really like the character. But I can't see how they're going to really fit her into the story arc if Tim's not going to have been a Robin that long, and I'm taking it that he wasn't Robin that long.
I wonder what that means for Cassandra Cain.
Well,
I'm guessing the same thing.
Well, here's the thing I was thinking about Cassandra Cain. If you remember, she's the Batman Inc. Japan Batman. So maybe the character will still be that role. It just she won't have that other connection to the Bat family. So we'll still have Cassandra Cain with that same kind of, trained by assassins background, but she won't be exactly what she was before.
Is it possible that Barbara Gordon can become Batgirl again without losing that she was Oracle at one point? I mean, I guess I'm with you in the sense that I'm assuming we are going to somehow go back to before she became Oracle. Or just have a different continuity where she just ended up staying as Batgirl or something like that. So I guess I'm going on that theory as well. But again, that's speculation. I don't know what this is going to look like. So
exactly.
Do you think there's any possibility that it could be that this is somehow she's able to walk again? Or
I'm thinking it could be a possibility that Killing Joke happened and either she got healed somehow or there was some other procedure that was taken so that she's now able to walk. There is a chance that Killing Joke happened, but she's not she wasn't permanently paralyzed, and so she didn't need to become Oracle. She could go back to being Batgirl again, but that's a possibility, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're losing that story, which does stink, because that was a great story, but I think we're losing it.
Well, we aren't losing the story. The story's still there. But I guess the reason why I even brought that up is that would be the only way that I could see that Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain happened, at least as a Batgirl, would be if they were going that route with it. And I don't know that I have a preference either way, because a lot of this is going to be really answered for me in September when I see how they're arriving at this point and what this universe looks like.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was on Where Monsters Dwell last week, and we were chatting about this. An interesting point they brought up is, do all of these books take place at the same time? And, for example, Action Comics and Superman, they were saying that they'd heard that Action Comics takes place before Superman, meaning it kind of delves into the history. I don't know how true that is, though. So I'm kind of, I'm right now, I'm very tentative as far as, so does that mean that Justice League takes place earlier than some of the other titles? I don't know. So it's an interesting concept, wondering if all these titles take place at the same time, or even if they all take place on the same Earth.
Well, I definitely think they're all taking place in the same Earth.
I do too,
but different time periods is a probable, highly possibility. Because I'm remembering to one of the teaser blips. I think it was on the Source, or I'm not exactly sure where I saw it, but they did refer to that Action Comics is going to be looking at the early days of Superman and his coming on the scene, and it made it sound like the actual Superman title will be present day, Superman.
So I wonder if that means that Justice League takes place possibly in the past as well?
Definitely could be. That could very easily be, because when you look at some of the cover art, that Superman did look a little bit younger than normal, so maybe that's an early Superman as well.
So it offers DC then, if they do that, and it's just speculation, so this may not be the route they're going, so please, anybody listening right now, just understand we're speculating. But if they did do that, kind of the cool thing about that is it's a great way to reimagine the past history of some of these characters and bring them quote-unquote up to date while still giving us present-day stories and explaining how is Batman currently still going through the events of Batman Inc. with some, I'm assuming there's going to be tweaks to our characters like Green Lantern you mentioned. I think the Green Lantern continuity is pretty intact with a few minor tweaks with the new changes. You know what cover I'm growing to like more and more, and I know he's not doing the interiors. Brett Booth's cover for Green Arrow has really grown on me.
Yeah.
The new look and just, I don't know what it was. It was something that initially at first I didn't know how to feel about it, and I actually have it on my iPad as my lock screen right now. It's really grown on me. I don't know, it's just one of those that did. I've also softened to Tim Drake. I'm still not crazy about the wings, but I was really worried about it when the first blurb we got with him was that he's getting out from behind the computer, and we didn't know that he was... It's funny how you take that line in one context till you get the line former Robin thrown in there. They didn't have that initially when they were showing that. And I'm so glad the September blurb has in there that he is still a former Robin. It's funny how you talked about maybe he isn't quite as old as he was, or we're seeing him at an earlier stage. Maybe I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but I'm much more comfortable with that as long as he was a Robin than the idea of him not being a Robin at all, and they're introducing him then as this Red Robin character. And it's funny, out of the entire Titans lineup, that was the one I was personally most worried about. But then I'm a Bat guy, so I don't know. What about Superboy for you? Is that a character? How are you? I'm kind of taking us off on a tangent before we get into Flashpoint, but this is such big news, and I think it's stuff that everybody who's a DC fan is thinking about this week. How do you feel about Superboy and Supergirl? Because it looks like those are being... Are you taking those as looking like they're being rebooted?
Yeah, those look like relaunches to me. Yeah, especially Superboy. It looks like we're taking him right from when he was a clone. He was made from and popped out. If I'm guessing that either Death of Superman didn't happen, or when it happened, it didn't have Superboy wasn't created after that, is how I'm taking it. I'm taking that Superboy is now being created, not back when Superman died. So the Superboy we're going to get in the Teen Titans is fresh out of the cloning vats, fresh, new to the world. So he's going to be much rawer. And I kind of take it that he's more like the Young Justice cartoon Superboy, where he really doesn't have any interaction with humans and people, and so the Titans is basically going to be his introduction to the world. And that's just, I'm guessing that, and I'm more or less guessing that because of some of the images I've seen. It seems like he's a little bit harder edge to him. He's fresh out of, there's a one cover that shows him kind of still hooked up to some freaky, funky devices, so... That's how I'm taking him. And same thing with Supergirl. I'm taking it she's fresh off the boat, so to speak, and this is, her just now coming into Earth and her first time's dealings with, humanity and everything.
That's one, I don't want to say I'm worried about it. I'm only, I guess, well, maybe worried is the right word. I'm worried only in the sense that I really like the character now. So I'm hoping that this new reboot or relaunch of her, I still like the character. And I'm making an assumption here that we are getting her rebooted again. I don't know that we are. It just could be that we're going to see her with a new look and a new status quo, or and they're going to somehow ground zero her, for people who haven't read her before, but still leave that there. So I'm making a lot of assumptions in what I'm saying here. So, right. and I'm aware of that. So, and that's one of the things where I'm not ready to throw any character or any title out the window until I've read them, because I want to see what these creators are going to do with them and how far it's going to change. In some cases, I'm going to really like the changes. Like Blue Beetle, that announcement has me through the roof with excitement. That's a book that I think should be back now. So I'm glad that one's going to be getting another life and another shot. What do you think about these Wildstorm characters coming to DCU, Jim?
That was the complete complete shock. I'd never even once thought they were going to pull in some of the Wildstorm universe. I was thinking maybe we'd get some Milestone stuff because they're bringing in Static Shock. Well, excuse me, Static, not Static Shock is not his name, but I fear maybe we get some of those. I never thought Wildstorm. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen there. It's, when Wildstorm was around, I was getting the titles, but I was getting bogged down too much financially and too much reading, so I had to drop the Wildstorm stuff. But I never dropped it because of dislike. I dropped it because of the economics and the general time restraints for reading as much as I was reading. So having them come back into the fold, having them be part of the DC universe, for me is a pretty cool thing. I want to see what they do with those characters, and I think they have the most leeway in that they're new characters, but they're not new characters. They already have people who've read some of their stuff, so they have somewhat of a loyal fan base out there who are like, oh, cool, I'm getting my characters back. I get to reread some of these people that I came to know and enjoy. So I think this is going to be, it's a surprise move, but I think it's a solid move on their part.
Well, we see Stormwatch characters teamed up with Martian Manhunter and with Apollo and Midnighter. So you've got Authority characters brought in. So you're seeing, a lot of these characters being combined with DCU characters. So that's an interesting in one book. And then we're seeing Grifter getting his own title, and we're seeing Voodoo getting her own title. I'm hoping that these books don't. First of all, I'm hoping they wind up being really good, because I'm intrigued right now, and I think it's a good time to try doing this when you're relaunching the whole universe. It's a good opportunity when you got people who are going to be kind of excited and tentatively excited, and people who are going to be nervous and scared. Which I think I fit all of these, gambits. I'm not one emotion. I think I'm all of them, so I kind of get everybody's emotions. But I think that's kind of a normal thing with something new when we're invested in this hobby. But I think that this is a good time to do this because we've seen DC attempt to do this a lot. We saw Worldstorm, which you and I both loved. I loved when they launched that event. Then that kind of petered out, and unfortunately, because I thought there was a lot of creativity there in what they were doing. And you and I were picking up minis that Wildstorm was doing. We were really excited about what Wildstorm was doing over there. So there was a lot of creativity in Wildstorm. And then we saw the same thing with the first wave. We saw the same thing with the Red Circle characters. I actually should say the Red Circle characters first came in, and you and I got into that, particularly the Shield. We were heavily interested. I liked the Web a lot, but if I had to pick out of the two, the book that was really edgy was the Shield. And I think a lot of that was not just the story, which was interesting, but the artistic direction of that book I thought was really cutting edge. And that was something that I really particularly enjoyed. But the Web actually was one of those. It's kind of similar to what I was talking about with the Spirit and Doc Savage in First Wave. The Shield was the book that all along I was getting more and more into, like the Spirit, and it took me a while to get into the Web, but by the time this, and I hate to say this, it was by the time the series was wrapping up that I was really invested in my guy. I never thought about dropping him, but it was by the end I became a big fan of the Web, and I think a lot of that was when he got tied in with Oracle. Same thing with First Wave, though. This is Doc Savage I got into as time went on, and that was canceled. So I'm hoping these characters, and where this is relevant, I'm hoping these characters don't wind up being another First Wave, Red Circle, those type of things. I'd like to see these characters have some life. And I think the choice to launch them now, along with things like Blue Beetle and stuff like that, is a good opportunity to get people in on the ground floor who might not otherwise, and putting them on the app and stuff like that, going the digital end. It's all of this is a big risky gamble that could end up blowing up in their faces, or could wind up being a really good thing. I'm hoping it leans towards the because if they win, it's because we're winning. We're as fans getting something new, and we're getting new people on board who haven't been before. So I'm curious timing wise. I'm hoping like Green Lanterns tomorrow night. They're doing the midnight showing of it. And I know I'm hoping for nothing. I'm hoping that there's something in the film referring to comic books. It'd be a great time to do that, wouldn't it?
Oh, it'd be a wonderful time, and I don't think, but
especially with the big relaunch.
Yeah, and that would be the ideal time to say it, because like everything, it's starting all over again. September is a great time for someone to jump on. You're getting the exact same. You have the exact same knowledge, pretty much, of what the longtime readers have. Boom, right there. You're going to see what happens. But yeah.
But I'm glad to see so much Green Lantern product. Next week, our whole episode is going to revolve around Green Lantern, and we can talk a little bit about the gaming that's been out for Green Lantern, the animation that's been out for Green Lantern, and of course War of the Green Lantern and how that's been going, and the film. So it's going to be we're going green next week.
Yes.
So for everybody, so we'll talk more about that. But it's a line I agree with you. I think that's going to be relatively untouched from all of this as well.
Yeah, and when we talk Green Lantern, I promise I won't sing "It's Not Easy Being Green." I promise I won't do that.
You're just going to do that now?
Yeah. But I won't do it next week.
That's great. Well, that's a wonderful teaser. Thanks for sharing. Where this is relevant, though, going back to Flashpoint and why we had this discussion, I think this series has taken on a very different life for me. And I've actually found myself, in a weird way, looking at Flashpoint and finding certain elements of the world that I would like to follow beyond this. Because we know we're going to be getting this till August, and I'm finding a lot to love in this universe. It's reminding me how much I love Elseworlds. And the whole concept of DC's, forgetting DC's multiverse for a second, because Elseworlds wasn't always considered to be a part of the multiverse. It was just stories that were told using unique concepts and all that. But even if you make it all a part of the multiverse and go beyond the idea of there being 52 worlds and just, open up Elseworlds to being just creators being creative again, this is exactly what I love about comics, this Flashpoint series. I'm loving that we're in this world where we've got our Flash experiencing this vastly different world of Thomas Wayne and how dark he is and what would be done to a man losing his son, and seeing, which we know now, what happened. Thomas went to try and stop the robbers, and he did a lot of, I'm thinking back to Batman Begins, where Ra's al Ghul is training Bruce.
Yeah.
And he's throwing in his face, your father wasn't strong enough, and Bruce was coming back saying, my dad didn't have training. We're seeing a situation here where Dad took the step to be the hero, and he'd almost would have been better off not doing what he did, because Bruce took the bullet instead.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, because when I saw that sequence, when I read that, first thing that, pops into anyone's training in the branches is, if with robberies, don't fight the robber. They want money, give them the money. Money's, insured, people aren't. Just, comply, do what they say, and don't try to be a hero. And it was funny because as he was doing that, I'm like, this is why we tell them not to attack the robbers, because someone can get killed. It may not be you. It may be the person standing next to you. And it's, so for me, it had another special kind of meaning to it. I was like, oh, okay.
Now, in Flashpoint number 2, it kicks off with Deathstroke. And it was interesting to see him in this world and how much it makes sense. Because in this world, with all the wars going on, and you've got these factions that are taking over different areas, you have this opportunity to see Deathstroke kind of analyzing this world and saying, well, if there's going to be these wars going on, there's going to be pockets where there's going to be loot for me to plunder. Yeah. So he becomes a pirate, a mercenary who becomes a pirate. Having to use the same abilities that we've seen him use in the DC Universe proper, and in many ways putting himself together with metahumans and with different things like that, and with different thugs, in order to somehow make a life for himself, not under anyone's thumb, but kind of doing his own thing. I really liked that aspect with him, because I was trying to figure out how him being a pirate was going to work in this and how I was going to feel about it, and I really like it.
Oh, this so fits him. This is the ideal casting for, Deathstroke. And it's one of those where there was absolutely no hesitation. Even when they announced this, I was like, okay, yeah, that's going to fit him. Because there's very little tweaking done to the character. He is pretty much the same guy that he was before. And just now he's got the high seas. And I love this whole opening sequence when you're seeing him sailing. And then as soon as when he sees the Warlord ship and he sees it's been trashed, like, what happened? He's like, they sailed too far inland. So did we. Battle stations. He knows they're right there on top of Paris. They're way in too deep, and it's about to hit the fan.
Well, and that was why he had the sonar guy going, because he's like trying to avoid Aquaman, an ocean master. And it's interesting to see those two partnered up now because of what has befallen Aquaman.
One thing I took that sonar's being used more for seeing if they can find, the collapsed cities and banks and the various,
Mm-hmm.
because when we find out that they, pretty much flooded flooded Europe and tried to destroy all of that area. When he did that, all the buildings that were on the surface are now underwater.
Oh, wait, I 110% agree with everything you just said, but you don't think they're also looking in a world with Aquaman and what he's doing? You don't think they're also looking for any signs of Atlanteans?
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm saying I'm not disagreeing with a single thing you just said. I'm like, amen, you're right on track with me. But I'm sure he would be nuts not to be. And we know more. We know that Deathstroke, I said Travis Morgan. We'll talk about him in a second. But we know that Deathstroke is that kind of planner and strategist. And it just, unfortunately, you're right, he got too close. What do you think of Aquaman in this world?
You know what? I'm really, chomping at the bit to get all the final pieces. We've had enough of the story laid out that we kind of have a good understanding of who Emperor Aquaman is and what he's going for. And I'm liking it. I'm liking why some of the subtle changes that happened. And I think we're going to learn that most of his anger is misdirected. I'm thinking that his own people, namely his brother, Ocean Master, who's double-crossed them before, probably double-crossed them again. And everything that Aquaman thinks the Amazons did, it was really Ocean Master who did it. That's my guess.
Well, okay. This all started off with Aquaman and Diana were supposed to get married. Okay, I mean, we might as well. We can talk about Emperor Aquaman and interfold it with this because we're going to do a spoiler warning at the beginning because of that. So let's just go here because I don't know how we can talk about him and not talk about why he's the way he is. So they were supposed to get married. I'm guessing it was some sort of a marriage between two different races to try and make peace versus it being a love thing.
Right.
And Mira was probably in the picture already then for him, or if not, she will be in the future from it. But I'm guessing there's a possibility she was there. And there was a relationship between the two, and he had to give her up to marry Diana. Maybe.
Yeah.
That may not have happened. She may not have been in the picture yet, but I'm just making a guess. I can't wait to read Wonder Woman this week to see what actually transpired between them. Because I think we're going to get more of I think we'll probably see more of Diana's thing, but it's one of the things I'm intrigued about. I'm actually getting into wanting to know the backstory. So I'm really glad that these minis are delving into that. You don't need to know it, but I want to know.
Yeah,
I really care. So Diana's mother's killed, and that brought the wedding to a halt. So did our Aquaman call for that?
See, that's where I think everything's going, because I took it that Mira was killed first, and then he retaliated by killing Hippolyta.
No, you got to reread that again, buddy. Diana's mother was killed first. That started the war between them. And Mira, because we've seen Mira in later years from him after the wedding was already done.
Oh, okay.
So, because those appearances from Mira that we see there were post the wedding. So Mira died second, not first. Diana's mother was already dead when Mira was killed. Mira was killed in retaliation. I'm guessing this is what is the feud between Arthur and Diana, even more now. Diana came seeking revenge on the Atlanteans. So whether Arthur made the call or not, she's blaming him.
Yeah.
And what better way to get back at the people that took your mother, whether Aquaman was responsible 100% or not, than to go after the queen of those people.
Well, they killed their queen, so, queen for queen, eye for an eye.
Right. So I'm guessing that's what was driving the death of Mira. I'm intrigued by the whole story, though. I think I already want to go back and I've reread these issues twice now. I want to go back and reread them again because there's a lot happening. We're getting a whole new history of a whole new universe, and it's a universe I'm really liking.
Yes.
Like this, I would, if they were to tell me right now in September, hey, by the way, besides these 52 titles, there's going to be 4 Flashpoint titles. There's some of those books I would honestly say, if I had to make a decision and say I can only get 52, I might bump some of them in favor of some Flashpoint continuation because this universe so far is really interesting. It's dark, and I'm not saying I would want it to be the DC universe proper because I don't. I like it as what it is. It's an Elseworlds, but I do like the Elseworlds.
Yeah.
It's a fun book. So we're Gotham City. We're in the Batcave again. And we see the revelation, where Barry once again is coming to the conclusion that the son died and he didn't. And boy, this Thomas Wayne, is not much of a conversationalist. I thought Bruce was a chatty Cathy. Boy, yeah. Dad.
This was awesome.
Yes.
Just watching him just take him apart and just, and it's, some of the stuff he's doing, initially when I first read it, I thought, okay, did he break the arm? I'm like, no, he didn't break the arm. He was dislocating joints, which is a lot more painful. He was doing a lot more of the arm bars and just the pressure moving and just the various really, really painful stuff. Yeah, a broken arm hurts.
Well, he broke his finger.
Yeah.
But he said almost broke his arm. He is doing a lot of the moves more fiercely than we've seen Bruce. So obviously Thomas Wayne's gone through a lot of the training that his son did.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think, though, my opinion is Bruce did more training. Because it's harder not to kill somebody than it is to actually kill them.
Oh, yeah. When I said a lot of the training, I meant that, a guy with his kind of resources and funds and drive because of this, to make people pay, his focus was totally different in his training. And I agree with you. I don't think he went through as extensive a training as his son, but it was more focused on one goal, to make criminals pay. Yeah. And not to redeem Gotham, not to save Gotham, not to find a better way. This is about revenge against criminals in a way that's totally different than Bruce. And I mean, you could say on the surface, well, isn't that what Bruce is doing? Bruce is trying to do something different. Not close to what Dad's doing. I mean, Dad takes him to Crime Alley to drop him off the top of a building. I mean, that's, there is no sense of, he doesn't. I don't think he believes in redemption for any of them.
No, and it's you kind of see that in his series where he's really talking that he's killed off Scarecrow, he's killed off Hush. Who else did he say is dead? There's the one crime boss is now dead. He's got no issues with taking lives. Well, he kills Croc. In the one scene where he drives the machete right into his head. Yeah. So this is, not a kinder, gentler Batman. He's a little bit hard-edged. And it's funny in a way, I'm liking it, even though I would never want to see Bruce do any of this. But because it's Thomas, I don't have an issue with it. And especially because you think about it, it's a father watching his son and, I'm assuming, wife die as well.
Oh, he snapped. He's so snapped.
Yeah.
I actually like it. I'm echoing everything you're saying. I actually like it better because it's not Bruce.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's funny if it was. I've seen. I mean, you remember my talks about different Batman where he got this violent, and it was out of character for him in my eyes. This is. I'm like, well, okay, I get what Thomas is doing here. I get why he's doing it. I get why he's mad. This is a different fella reacting to a different situation. This isn't a little kid who, had the benefit of I want to see? What happened to Alfred?
Yeah. Yeah, my guess is because he wasn't a kid, he fired Alfred and got rid of him. Didn't let him around. Or maybe the wife actually lived and Alfred went with her.
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions. And I also question if we've seen Alfred elsewhere in the universe, but I don't know. I agree with all those possibilities. Everything you just said. I'm like, well, there's a lot of possibilities there. I'm curious, though. And that's something I want to read about. Now, one thing we learn here with Barry is that this universe being folded in is affecting him. He's starting to have memories of this universe intermixing with his memories of our universe. So he's aware that this world shouldn't exist. And this is setting aside an interesting possibility. When the universe folds back, it sets to explain that Barry could easily fold back into a new version of the universe with limited memory of what our world was like before, if you follow me. In the sense that if the universe in September is modified, we don't necessarily have to have a Barry who knows everything that came before. He might have an awareness, but and Booster could also go through a similar problem. When he goes through there, it's Booster doesn't seem to be having quite the same problem that Barry does yet, but will he along the way?
Yeah, right now, Booster, all we've seen Booster is he's fully in our current universe. Mm-hmm. So he's one of the people who knows all the truth, but you never know what's going to happen there, where that's going to change or when that's going to change, or even if. with the announcements that Booster's going to be in the JLI comic, but it doesn't look like he's going to have his own series. So, are we only going to get the one Booster? Is he still going to be that great time-traveling hero that no one ever knew about?
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with him. So I'm curious to see. I don't think him being in the JLI means necessarily we're going to lose that, especially because we've got the writer of Booster right now writing that book.
Right.
So, that leads me to believe there's a possibility that we're going to have a Booster who is aware. I don't know. And I don't. Do you have a preference there?
Well, I kind of would like it that when it's rebooted, and it's not like when they go through the refresh, have everybody on the same page and not have them thinking back to the past as if what was occurred wasn't the same as what it is now. I'd kind of like everyone to be on the even playing field and just have it be, boom, this is the way it is. Because if they have anybody who has the connection back to the way it was, that tells me there's a chance for them to go, let's reboot it back to the way it was. Boom, let's switch it back. And I don't want to see that. If they're going to go through with this change, let's commit to the change and go forward. And
develop good stories with the change.
Yeah.
And really have us invest in and buy into the new status quo, which is obviously going to have a decent amount of elements from the previous status quo. But I'm with you on that, actually. I don't want this to feel like it's... I want to believe in it. And I mean, I want the stories to be good enough to make me believe in it. So, and we should clarify that for anybody listening going, what? You want what? Because I know you like the current continuity. I love the current continuity. But if they're going to do this, it's really important in September that they make me a believer in it and that I want to follow the new status quo, however new it is. And I put quotes around new because we're, like what we've already speculated about, how much of it's going to still stay. Did you notice Barry's eyes? They're different each one. Like he's got like a reverse Flashish looking eye, and then a Flash looking eye.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think you mentioned something the last time we talked about this that I don't know if it's as simple as what you said that time, but Zoom's costume pops out of his ring, which he doesn't understand. But I think part of the problem Barry's having right now is maybe there's elements of A and B going on with him.
Yeah.
There's that part of him that's still connected to the Flash that he was and to Zoom like he was. Because you threw out something last time where you thought
he's the reverse Flash of this universe. He's the Zoom, and I'm still holding on to that. That for him to get his speed, he's going to have to do what Zoom did.
Because Zoom has his.
Yeah, because Zoom is the one connected to the Speed Force. Barry's no longer connected to it. Zoom's the positive positive charge of the Speed Force. He's got to connect to the negative Speed Force.
Now here's the nutty part. And
if he's alive.
Yeah. Who is Zoom?
If Barry's alive.
Oh yeah. From his barbecue at the end.
Yeah.
I thought you meant Zoom was alive. I'm like, what are you talking about? We know Zoom's alive. No, you're right. I'm guessing we can assume that Barry's alive from his barbecue, but not very happy though about it. Now, Thomas is posed with an interesting thing here. He thinks Barry's nuts, but Barry's presenting him with the ultimate carrot. I come from a world where I'm friends with your son, and this world's wrong, and I can make it right. So you got a guy like Thomas who's so driven by hatred for being a survivor, so driven by hatred for the way the world is, so driven by what it's done to him and to his family, and a man who is a father that clearly would be thrilled to go back through that all again and to take the bullet for his son so he could live instead. And that would be a world that would be right to Thomas. So, as much as he doesn't 100% believe in Barry, he has to sit there and say, can following this guy be any worse than what I'm already going through? He's living in a nightmare, Thomas, every single day. So I get emotionally why he would even entertain this. Like, how much worse could it possibly be to see if this guy's crazy or not? Because if he's nuts, this guy's just going to wind up dead. So what? Barry, so what? Okay, the guy's wrong. It doesn't make my world any worse, but what if there's some small inkling of a chance that what he's saying is true, and I don't help him. What does that mean? What am I denying myself? What am I denying my son? And I so bought into this, and it was where this issue got really cool for me, and I was blown away.
Hey, you ask anybody, any father out there, or even any mother out there, if they would sacrifice their life to save their child, and they'll all say yes. That's just a natural, just parental, instinct that, if, especially finding out that his kid lived in Barry's world, I'm doing it. Go for it. Jump right in. Heck, there's, I got nieces and nephews that I'd make that trade up for if that happened. It's, you look at, just, it so fits him. Yes, he's this violent, really nasty, kill 'em all Batman, but the reason he is that way is because he's got a broken heart, because he buried his son. He watched his son die, and not only did he watch his son died because of his actions. That's the thing that's really driving Thomas Wayne, is because he attacked that, killer, because he went for the gun, because he tried to stop the guy, his son died. Bruce's guilt, Bruce had his own version of survivor's guilt, but for him it was because he was a kid and he witnessed this horrific thing, and he's like swore no one else would feel that pain that he felt, and it's it's a tragedy, but it is kind of a more of a noble tragedy to it, where Thomas has not only survivor's guilt, but he's got the guilt that you can say it's not your fault, Thomas, and he'll say, but I attacked the guy. So it'd be a hard argument to justify to him that it's not his fault. So he's dealing with not only the pain, he's dealing with the fact that he caused the death. So yeah, I could so see this person jumping on this opportunity of bringing back his son, even if it means he dies.
Now, Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor. Interesting moment there, because he comes in behind the enemy lines as an extraction person, and who else better than a pilot to come in and get Lois Lane out? And, she was in there to get the true information, like, the reporter that she is, to get the true story and to bring it out. And I love Steve's comment about her. She's also one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. And it was interesting with him telling this to Wonder Woman, considering we all as fans consider Wonder Woman to be one of the most beautiful heroines in comics. She's always been presented that way. That's always been part of her MO. So it was interesting to have that, because, you talk about Superman's relationship with Wonder Woman and what is the attraction, and to have Steve Trevor have this kind of, when he's looking right at Diana, having this kind of reaction as well, is, I found it interesting. But also to see her, she's using the lasso as a noose, as a way, it's a different approach from our Wonder Woman that's all about compassion. This is totally the militant Wonder Woman. And she's been driven to being militant. The compassionate side of her that she had before, where she was rebelling against Mom, not always rebelling against just Mom, but really taking on her role as emissary to the outside world, which I think is a better way to put it than the way I just did. She embraced this role. She went from Themyscira as an emissary with Steve Trevor, and was trying to show them a more enlightened way. And we've seen her take on a more aggressive role as Wonder Woman and have to deal with the consequences in herself, and to try and find that compassionate side again and connect with it. But that compassion, I think, has always been something that we have considered to be a strong suit of this warrior. We're not seeing it here. Are we going to see it with Steve Trevor? Like, when I see her sitting up there in that perch, part of me is thinking that was a nod for her to say, let's hang him. So do you think Steve Trevor made it out of this?
Na 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 na. Hey, goodbye.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not 100% sold that he doesn't, but I'm with you. There's a part of me that's leaning heavily in that direction. I wouldn't be surprised to see him again, though, either. Because I wonder if we're going to see elements of who these people really are interspersed with the harder edge that they've got right now.
All kidding aside, I don't think she's ordered his execution yet. Mm-hmm. But because he may still be useful, especially when they're getting this Lois Lane. So I don't really know this Diana's protocol when dealing with prisoners. It could be kill him right now, or it could be this guy could give us more vital information. He could still be of use to us. He's I could see her saying he's scheduled for execution, but let's wait a little bit before we actually kill him. So
yeah.
he may be alive, but there's a really good chance. Just that look on her face when she's sitting there perched up, she doesn't look like she has the most benevolent look on her face.
Oh, I actually totally agree with that. That's you're hitting on the same thing that I'm seeing from this as well. So I agree with you. So,
which in a weird way, I'm like, for me, it's again one of those things where I'm really glad seeing this because, it is such a cool, exploration of who she is, to go into full hardcore warrior. But on the other hand, one of the things I always loved about, some of the Wonder Woman stories we've read is when she has that compassion, when you see that love is truly her strongest suit to her. And when she was dealing with the, initially when, Gail started writing her and dealing with the talking, monkeys, gorillas, and she didn't just beat them up. It was more of a warrior code. It was the queen in her. It was that, just her character that stopped the fight. It wasn't just a beatdown. So I love seeing that the duality nature of that is Wonder Woman. This Wonder Woman doesn't have that. This is the pure hardcore warrior. So I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, but I still do want the other part of it. So I'm wondering if we're ever going to get that maybe back again. I don't know.
Can we see a Wonder Woman and an Aquaman that join Barry Allen's fight? Do you think there's a possibility that either of them have enough in them? Maybe not one, maybe both, either or. Do you think either of them, from what we've seen so far, have the possibility of being those ones to say, okay, we'll help you?
Well, here's the thing. You promise if they're able to convince, Aquaman that, hey, Mira can live again. We can change this back and we can bring back this world. And you can tell Diana, your people can live in peace again. It won't be, your mother will be back. The Amazons, Themyscira won't be destroyed. It will be, a peaceful, society again. We can bring back this, utopia that you've always wanted, and it's a protected utopia. You may be able to convince them of, that could happen and maybe get them on your side. The only problem is each one of them have been double-crossed so much that getting to them, making them, trust that you're actually on the up and up and that it's not a trick will be difficult. With Thomas, he hasn't been really double-crossed by the world. He's just seen it go downhill. So you're offering him a chance, and he's being skeptical. If Barry had told him, hey, I got to strap you into this electric chair.
Dude, hold on. I'm going to have to disagree with you 100% there with Thomas. Thomas has got nothing left to lose. Where Diana and Arthur are in a different place. They're both leaders of their respective peoples. In Thomas's case, yes, he has kind of an empire with what he's doing with Wayne and all that, but as a person, as an individual, there is nothing emotionally left for him to lose. His desire for his son to be, and I think, is there going to be a possibility to reach Aquaman and Wonder Woman in that same way? Maybe, but they certainly aren't in the place that Thomas is yet.
Right.
So, and maybe we are saying the same thing. I don't know.
We are actually saying the same thing, just wording it differently.
Okay.
We're both, looking at, the example I was going to go with was if Barry had told Thomas, hey, to have this happen, you have to be strapped in this electric chair, Thomas would have kicked his butt, again. The fact that Barry is stepping in the chair, Barry's taking the risk of life and death, that was why Tom's like, okay, I'll help you do this. But, if it gets to that point where, Thomas, it's looking like, Thomas is still skeptical of Barry. He's just, he's not being asked to put up really anything to lose yet. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I agree with that. One of the things I'm looking at, this electroshock thing that Barry goes through, Thomas's cape is so reminiscent of the old Batman-style costume that Thomas has been famous for putting on during Halloween all those years ago.
Yeah.
With the cape the way that it is and all that. I really liked the design choice of Thomas Wayne's cape. It was just something that stood out for me and kind of fits that where did Thomas get this from? He got it from that. Because he would obviously had to have become Batman from a different path than his son did.
Well, in the back of the issue, they have the renderings and the drawings and all that. I thought that was kind of neat with the different notes of the changing in the costume.
Yeah, which I love that. I would be glad to see more of this in comics because I think that's just terrific. To see these final designs, and they're like DVD extras.
Yeah.
It's I love seeing the creative aspect. This Andy Kubert really did a great job.
Oh yeah,
on the first couple.
Now this final sequence where Barry's a crispy critter, yeah, he's looking pretty bad there, and part of me thinks maybe he survived because can you really have Flashpoint without the Flash? But it is. I do wonder how did that happen? How was he able to survive? Because that's a tough one. The electricity, 1.21 gigawatts, that's not an easy thing to survive.
Well, here's the one thing. What if it worked to a certain extent?
Yeah.
Like, what if we're not seeing, his ability to heal himself here or something? I don't know. Because this ends if Barry's not there.
Yeah.
So he has to be alive.
Though, he did tell Thomas enough stuff that maybe Thomas is going to start pursuing this. Thomas is going to start being the detective and try to figure it out just based on the ramblings that Barry gave him.
Dude, Barry's alive. I'll tell you right. No, I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. There's no way he's not. If there's one person who's safe in this, it's Barry Allen. I don't see any other way for this to go. Because I think he is the centerpiece player in all this. And what you just said, if hypothetically Barry were to die, I agree with you. He gave him enough. But this is a Flash event. There's no way Barry's not with us. And I mean, dude, we've seen cover blurbs for the other issues. There's no way Barry's not a part of this.
I know. Now, in what capacity, that's a whole other story.
Agreed. That I'm not 100% sure that this worked. I guess I'm not taking him being a crispy critter to mean that it didn't work to some extent. But, it could be the other extent. And here's the other thing, too. Zoom wants to mess with him. So I don't know that Zoom's going to let him die.
Yeah, that would just really ruin Zoom's plans. So Zoom goes through all of this stuff just to torture Barry, and Barry kills himself by accident by hooking himself up to an electric chair. That would just be the ultimate, oh, man, come on, all that planning, everything I did, and you ruined it for me, pal? Because
he wants to torment him with this.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing, too. Does Zoom need Barry? Like, for what Zoom's doing? And that's part of the thing that we don't know yet. I don't know the relationship between Zoom and Barry in this world. I don't think it's an accident that we saw both Flash symbols in Barry's eye.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that there's two different things going on with Barry. I think there's more of a duality here than we think, and a duality in the relationship between Zoom and Barry in this world. So I guess that's why I'm saying I was totally dismissing last time we talked about this, your idea of it being Zoom. Now I'm going to go back and say, I think you are a ton more right than I ever gave you credit for, which Nostradamus, that's happened multiple times on the show anyway. But I don't think that's the whole story. I think that there's more of a symbiotic relationship with the two in this world. And that was a lot of that stuff was alluded to in the Flash series leading up to this, the relationship between the two.
Yeah.
And I think that made a lot of this possible. So I don't think Zoom can have him die for him to maintain what he's been doing. I don't know about maintaining, but I mean, I think Barry is essential piece for Zoom.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where as the story's unfolding, we keep coming up with more questions, but it's not like an angry mystery where I'm like, dang it! It's the coolness of the story being laid out.
Oh, it's gripping.
I've no doubt that by the end of this, we'll have all these questions answered, and that's one of the stuff that I really enjoy about his writing and just way this is playing out. So I'm getting so much out of these things.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Scott from South Carolina. I actually just left day one of the Heroes Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was listening to your show about the big changes at DC on the way there, and when I got to the convention, there was a lot of talk about the change that DC was making, and going, digital the same day that the issues come out. The consensus on the floor was that most of the dealers and even a lot of the creators, what they feel like is going to happen is that the end of Flashpoint is going to cause the changes that we're going to see with the reboot. So it's not that they're just rebooting, for no reason, but there's going to be an explanation with the ending of Flashpoint as to why all these changes have happened, and I guess the reboot's the number one. But they also feel like that this is going to be a temporary deal, and that it's going to almost be like another, that Flashpoint is going to cause another, I guess, a temporary change of status quo on the DC universe, and then after a year it's going to go back to the way it was before, which I just don't see that happening. I just don't see DC, making all these changes to try to bring in new readers and then get these new readers hooked for a year and then pull the rug out from under them and switch back to the original universe that we all know. So I'm not too sure that's exactly what's going to happen, but there was a lot of, uncertainty about it, and I have to say I'm one of them. I mean, I've been reading comics for, I think Sean said he's been reading for 30 years, and I've been reading about 35, and I'm going to try to reserve judgment till the issues come out, because I'm going to certainly buy them, but I'm a little concerned about it because I don't really see what they're going to do with all the characters, like you guys were saying, Damian and Roy Harper and Wally and, the Batman Inc. storyline and, all the things that we've been following the last several years. Are they just going to wrap them up and then just start over? It just seems like to me they would alienate a lot of old, readers to try to bring in new ones. And if they alienate the old readers just to bring in new ones, then they're going to be back at square one anyway. So, I don't know. It's just a lot of uncertainty right now. And as far as the digital thing goes, going straight to the, where you can download it the same day the issues come out, it seems that most of the comic shop owners that I talked to today, they're concerned about that because they just feel like that's going to take away from their business somewhat. But again, they're uncertain about that too. So if you're like me, you're going to still go to the local comic shop, on Wednesdays and pick up your books. I download a few here and there to my iPad, but in general, I'm going to stick with the floppies and keep filling up my long boxes. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that little report, and hope you guys continue to do the show for years to come. Thanks a lot.
I'm 40, so you and I are probably a lot closer in how long we've been reading comics than even I'm aware of. It's funny, I always try to throw out an actual date on when I started reading comics, and it was when I was a little kid at some point. So I'm not going to say I've been reading 40 years because I don't think I was reading it when I was out in diapers. But superheroes have been a part of my life since then, so it's funny when you mention that. I can't really pin down the actual year I started reading comics. It's very hard for me to do. But, on the retailer end, I'm going to start with that. I understand their concerns and worries, and if I were a retailer, I would be too. My hope as a fan of comics is, and this is where it could be good for retailers, and that's why I think there is some uncertainty, because I'm sure there's retailers who are seeing possibilities that, wow, maybe this will make some awareness for comics and bring people in. And that's what I'm hoping will happen. I'm hoping that there are people who aren't currently reading comics who, like you mentioned, you're downloading a few things for your app, but I'm not, it's not people like you and me that I want to see get interested in comics. It's hopefully some people who aren't currently reading the product. And if that's not happening, then to me, there's little point in this whole reboot process. I think that will serve to bring over maybe some people who are reading comics elsewhere, other comic companies and things, that'll get interested in, hey, what's DC doing now? Let me check out some of these books. And that always works to bring in some new readers that way. But the ultimate thing that has to happen here is there has to be a way to get some new readers in, some new people who have not been reading before, bring them back into comics, or bring them into comics for the first time, even with, a good launch point. I was at the Green Lantern movie last night, and one of the neat things with the Green Lantern movie was I finally, it was in the credits, but there was at least a quick ad right in there saying, if you enjoyed this, and it's a Green Lantern ad we've seen in the comics right now, go and read the books. And, I think that's a good thing to see in the multimedia right now. I'd like to see it in their games and stuff, too. Just more opportunities for people to be aware that the comic product is out there. And then, the comics promote the video games promote the movies, and, all of these things should have a symbiotic relationship where they promote each other. So I don't know, I'm worried about the retailer end, too. This reboot relaunch, I would be sorely disappointed. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. If it ended in a year and it was for storytelling purposes, I would be fine with that. I'm with you. I don't see that being what they're doing here. I do think that there would be some concepts that they would rework in a year if they weren't selling or getting people interested. It's like television. Certain series make it, certain series don't. Certain concepts, if they want to then rework it and bring it back out again in a different form, they will. They'll attach a new creative team and do it, especially if it's a high-profile concept of theirs, like a team book or something like that they want out there. So I don't think the 52 books that we've seen announced are the only books that are going to be announced. I think we're going to get some more as time goes on afterwards that are still going to be announced, whether it's mini-series or other series launches. But I think we're going to see these books, hopefully at least all of them get a good year run, and to see what concepts stick and see what ones people like and enjoy, because they're trying a lot of new ideas. And, on the concerns end, and I know this is back from, where Heroes Con was, so I know you know a lot more now than we even did then, because a lot more news has come out since then. But we do know that, like, the Robin chain is still going to be in place. Dick Grayson was Robin, Jason Todd was Robin, Tim Drake was Robin, and Damian is Robin now. So a lot of that progression's in place. It just looks different now, I think, a little bit. I don't know. This is where, like you're saying, Flashpoint's going to explain a lot about what has happened so far. And it looks like we're going to be getting another sort of history of the DC Universe kind of thing going on, where, at some point they're going to explain a little bit more clearly what that looks like as time goes on. But we're going to see a status quo change in certain cases. And in other cases, it's going to be pretty similar to what we've seen. I don't know. I'm very excited. And I'm tentative on some concepts. And I think we're all in that same boat on that end. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. And on the retailer end, I do hope that this winds up being a very positive thing for retailers. We as comic fans need the retailers out there. We need places that sell all these products. And, it's something, I'm very compassionate to the plight of any comic book retailers, where it's online or, they have store fronts or, wherever. You always want to see comic book retailers do well, because the more comic book retailers are, the more awareness that there is for comics. So I'm hoping that this day and date stuff doesn't hurt the retailers too much.
Hey guys, this is Chad Burdett. Just finished listening to your last episode about the DC relaunch, and I have some thoughts on that and on the Superman renouncing his citizenship controversy. So bear with me, because my notes would put one of Rip Hunter's chalkboards to shame. First off, I'll start off with the Superman and the whole citizenship debate. Actually, I think it was kind of blown out of proportion, and being that it was a backup story, and it got more flack than it really deserved. I think it's especially since the current story of Superman is him walking across America, reconnecting with the American people. Now, I think my problem is with story consistency. Sorry about that. I mean, if you're going to set a specific tone for a character, and you're trying to make some larger culturally relevant point with him or her, then you need to have a little bit of internal consistency with the story that you're telling during that period. And it's purely brand awareness. I mean, Action 90 came out shipped on April 27th, and that was I would say it's probably midway, if not almost, with the storyline almost done. But I think that they would have done better if they wanted to run that short story or back up. It would have been better to do it after the Superman, walking across America's storyline was done. I mean, after he's done walking across America, if Soup, wants to, he can change his point of view. He can choose to sport a Shea T-shirt and renounce his citizenship and throw in with Hugo Chavez if he wants, as a result of his epiphany from his walk. That would keep the character evolution internally consistent to the editorial decision of the brand. But if you want to make a point that would apply to readers in a broad range, you should also perhaps do what Alan Moore did with Watchmen and use different characters. I know he wanted to use the Charlton characters, but still, I think if you have a really what you feel is an important political or religious point to make, then tell the story without superheroes and ground it in a more limited world of humans and human frailties, and then I believe it'll have more impact. Moving on to the DC news about the reboot. When I was listening to the episode and I heard Jim use the term youthing, I did a double take because I thought initially he said euthanize, and we don't want to be euthanizing any superheroes. I'll keep my thoughts on this brief because I'm still like you guys. I'm still up in the air, and I'm kind of excited / worried. And as the new ideas and creative teams are released, then I'm getting excited. But for me, I'm wondering where I guess B or C list characters such as Animal Man are going to fit in. I mean, if they have a new Swamp Thing comic book, perhaps that would be a good fit for him because Swamp Thing represents the green and Animal Man is connected to the red. I think that even with this reboot, DC can, will probably leave themselves like a back door, so in case things don't work out the way they wanted to, then they can, go back to what was working. And perhaps we saw a trial balloon of this with Straczynski's Wonder Woman run, because if you remember, there's one, throughout the story, Wonder Woman, the current Wonder Woman remembers or has, feels that, this isn't her life, and she can think of other times, and they flash back to her and her different interpretations or costumes and stuff like that. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on those two issues, and maybe also with the this reboot, we can finally get the Wonder Twins and Gleek. I think that would kind of be awesome to see those characters from the old Super Friends cartoon brought into the mainstream. I know they were brought in, I believe it was in the Extreme Justice series, but I really don't, it's been a while since I've read that, and I don't know how they were used in that, but maybe it would be a time to bring in, characters like that into, I guess, fun characters is what I'm trying to say. All right, I'm going to hop off here, and guys, keep up the good work, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye. Okay, I had one thing I forgot. This is Chad Burdett again. Like I said, my notes are all scribbled out on this piece of paper because I was at work when I was listening and making quick notes. Anyway, like I said, Action 900 came out in April 2000, or in April 27. Sorry, and then in Superman 711, which was out on May 11th, I guess DC had their little damage control where Superman goes, "Oh, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is, something that everybody should be able to have, even if not only in America but on the entire earth." Anyway, that was the only part I left off. Again, I think this whole citizenship was blown out of proportion, and especially when I was talking to my mom, who knows I read comics and probably wishes I didn't, but she was like, "Did you hear? Superman renounced his citizenship. I'm not happy about that." I'm like, okay. And at the time I really couldn't comment on it because I hadn't read the storyline, but okay, I'm done. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
The one thing when you talk about the timing placement of that Superman story and could it have waited until after certain storylines were wrapped up, one thing we have to remember about that Action Comics issue, I do agree with you that it's being blown out of proportion in the sense that some of our listeners speculated that this is just a one-off story. And when Jim and I were talking about it, we were laughing about, this probably is going to turn out to just be a one-off story. And that was an anniversary issue. So I think a lot of those stories that were backups, aside from the Cornell story in the front, can be considered more like the things that are done in the 80-page Giants, for example, than the regular books. I think they were meant to be backup stories, like you said, because you mentioned in your call that you were looking at like a backup story. And that's exactly what I think they were meant to be. And I think this was meant to be a one-off story. And just to kind of illustrate Superman's role, is his role as an American, is his role as a worldwide character, and it's an interesting story. I love the debate about it because it's interesting to take a look at. Is the character now? Do you still consider him to be an American citizen with the way that he's doing things in the other titles? I don't know. I see. I'm of the mind that I don't know that his citizenship matters to who the character is and what he's all about. I think his ideals are what has always mattered. I don't think that those were ever driven by citizenship. I think they were driven by the way he was raised and his actions. I think he can be his being a citizen can be turned on and off like a light switch, I think, based on the situation. And listeners like our friend Greg sent us a great email, which I didn't end up reading on the show just because I haven't had time. But Greg, just to kind of paraphrase him, was talking about the Silver Age and the fact that this has been done before with these characters. So it isn't the first time that Superman and Supergirl renounced their citizenship, and it was story driven at the time. So we've heard this before, and thank you, Greg, for sending that information in. I don't know. It's an interesting. I can understand why people would be uncomfortable with it, and I think it is right, though. I think a lot of people who aren't comic fans or aren't regular Superman readers are more in shock of it than perhaps even some of the diehard Superman fans. It's interesting. You mentioned Animal Man, and it's funny, he's getting his own book. So we are going to see that character, and wonder what his interactions, if they're going to be with Swamp Thing or not, because Swamp Thing obviously will have his own title too. So, and then they're part of that line of titles that are going to be coming out, the horror-ish kind of titles from DC. So I'm going to be curious to see what Animal Man's revamp of sorts looks like, and again, how much of his history is going to be in there. I don't think that all of these titles are going to necessarily be starting these characters at ground zero or screwing with their continuities from the past necessarily, as much as defining them for now. So I'm becoming less and less worried and more excited because I think they're trying to say, hey, what can we do to make this character an interesting character to read now? And I think that's always a good thing for us as readers. And Animal Man, to have Animal Man back in a monthly series, I'm really excited for that because it's a different sort of unique character. And I think we're going to see, you mentioned the Wonder Twins and concepts like that. I think what we're starting to see with the 52 lineup is you've got a lot of our tried and true characters that you need to have. And you've got some concepts being shelved, which that's going to be an area of discomfort for a lot of us. And then other concepts that we haven't seen in a while getting monthlies. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing for us as fans. It's going to freshen things up a bit, make it exciting, to follow different characters and things. So I'm always excited for that. And the creative teams on there certainly are top-notch. I am worried about some of the creative teams that I haven't seen yet, in the sense that there's a lot of writers and artists who I think are very good and are extremely talented that I can't wait to see the projects they're going to have. I'm hoping they're going to have certain projects because there's a lot of them that I've really just been enjoying, and I'm, very uncomfortable with the fact that I don't know where those creators are going to wind up. Whether at DC or elsewhere, I'm hoping to see them just attached to projects because they're people who I respect and their work just deserves to be somewhere on a monthly basis. So I'm waiting tentatively to see where those creators wind up. And I'm hoping, on a selfish level, I'm hoping they wind up at DC just because I want to see them working on this universe. So we'll see what happens.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Jim, I want to talk about, we've kind of casually talked about some of the minis as we were doing our discussion of Flashpoint issue number 2, but I want to talk a little more in depth about the world of Flashpoint number 1, and the reason why is we were at conventions and they were talking about breakout characters, because they talked about in Brightest Day how Mira became, and Blackest Night as well. Mira has become like this breakout character of the Blackest Night event really was where she really got her name, and that was something we continued to follow into Brightest Day. So the question came up, who is going to be that character in Flashpoint? And they didn't say who, but they were alluding to a female character that would be the breakout one, which it's looking to be Tracy 13. Because she seems to have, and I don't know if it's going to be as strong as Barry and Booster, but she's aware that there was another world, sort of. I mean, she was able to have vivid memories of her relationship with Blue Beetle, how that all went, having friends in the Titans, everything that we'd seen from her in recent years, and even the stuff that was going on in her co-feature, or second feature, with Black Alice and Zatara. Yeah, I mean, it's cool to kind of see her have this connection through magic. So we're going to see her, I'm guessing, in a very major role in this series.
Oh, definitely. And this has been... It's funny because you sit there and every one of them has their own little symbols, and hers is, the world of Flashpoint symbol is the world with, the flash lightning bolt running through it. And I looking at the different symbols, that's the one that I'm really like, that's kind of a cool looking, and even a really well explanation in symbolism of what this is. This is, pulling all the pieces together, but I'm also thinking she's going to be one of the pivotal pieces for Barry being able to revert the thing back. And maybe she's one of the reasons Barry survives. Because we were talking before about in Flashpoint 2 where Barry is a crispy critter. Maybe it's Tracy who saves him.
Ooh, okay. Using magic.
Yeah.
Especially considering her inability to save her own family, which would be a driving force for her. Because it was something that has stuck with her. Because it was interesting seeing them in the beginning of this at the dinner table. And it's clear Mom is a witch and, also has the magic powers and stuff like that Tracy has. And I'm so used to seeing Dr. 13 with his daughter. That was something we'd seen in previous occurrences with her. I got to admit that a lot of the stuff we saw with Azzarello and then later is more of my exposure to these characters. And to see them now as a whole family unit together sitting here, I thought was really interesting because we know Dr. 13 is this skeptic when it comes to magic. And it's amazing with his whole family being involved in magic besides him that he was that character.
Yeah, that was something I was wondering if that was always the case with this character, if it was always the wife was also in the magic, if this what we're seeing was a standard for the story, because I really have very little knowledge of her and dealings with her, and I thought that was a neat part, and actually it was a good explanation why he would be a skeptic, why he would be such anti-magic, because his wife had it and the daughter has the gift, and then when Paris got flooded out, she only had enough energy for her and the dad, and not for the mom and the siblings. So you can really see that he would have a resentment, hatred towards magic, because yes, this all-powerful thing, but it wasn't powerful enough. It wasn't powerful enough to save all of his loved ones, and and he doesn't want to blame his daughter, that she wasn't strong enough. But in the back of his mind, there is a bit of that resentment and anger.
Oh, absolutely, and you can't help but do that. It's not even just with him to her; it's with her with herself.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand that. And I loved seeing the flooding of Paris from the perspective of people who were victimized by it, because that's something that added a sense of depth and richness to this world, was being able to see events. And that's where this, Flashpoint's got its own little continuity going, and I dig this kind of stuff. That events that Aquaman caused, or, his race caused, mattered. And they affected people in this, and they're driving the status quo of people that we're used to seeing in a very different light. And the trauma, it looked like, of the event has maybe in some ways affected her, because we get to see Steele's daughter even in the costume there. So I don't know, this whole thing to me was just pretty terrific, seeing her from this standpoint, and what drives her with the 13 kind of tattooed on her forehead.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of the things I liked is the present day Tracy. She's got the scarring along the side of her head. That's probably some magic spell that she was working on that went wrong. It's showing in just seeing her how much energy, how much power she actually has. Now she's been focusing, training herself, because she wasn't strong enough back then. Well, now she's strong enough. Now she's actually going to, she's got the power to do something about it. But just little changes to the character, little maturity. And when I say maturity, I'm talking just like, any trauma, any severe major event like that would kind of age you, and would make you a little bit, easily makes you a little bit jaded towards goodness and love and just compassion. So, and that's, you kind of see she's got a little bit of a harder edge to her. She and her father are constantly going at it, and when she goes to see Xanadu's like, you are arguing with your father again. Well, you always come and fight, you always come to me when you fought with him, but two, make peace with him. There's not enough peace in this world. And I thought that was just a cool kind of sentiment.
Well, and her recognizing that Dad right now needs some form of peace.
Yeah.
And what they're going, and it's funny how Xanadu's spot on, because what Dad's doing, they're both reacting to that same situation in heavy but different ways. I loved seeing Tracy 13, where she's this kid who's looking at the world and saying, one person can't make a difference. Can they? No, they can't do that. Not now, not at this time. Yet she seems driven to try and make herself into somebody who possibly could. Or is possibly somebody viable to team up with others to make a difference, to make the world a better place. Where really it seems like Dr. 13's given up on the world, in the sense saying, let's blow it up and start over again, or at least, heavy areas of it. And no matter how many casualties, and I mean, that's where you get fanatical. You're no longer worried about life. It's worth casualties. It's worth expendable people to change a status quo. And he's become fanatical now. And guilt has driven him in many ways similar to Thomas Wayne. There's a lot of similarities between the two of them right now in their situation, because he lost two little ones and his wife, and look what it's done to him.
And you think about it, he's not the only one. In that whole room where all of those people voted yes, all the people who voted yes, a lot of them were like, hey, we had Osiris saying, "Hey, they killed my sister. Let them all fry. I'm for yes." And the millions and millions of people who are going to die just because they want to take out, the Amazons, just because they want to take out the Atlanteans. You got to look. Is it worth? Is the end game worth what you're? The cost worth the reward? And I would be, if I was sitting on that council, I would have been one of the people who said, "No, we can't do this. We got to figure out some other way. This can't be our only option."
Right. I agree with you. Because how do you live with yourself after that? And that's something, to be that person, to have made that call for that many people and that many lives. How do you do that? But it just shows how dire a world this is. I liked seeing this little blurb that showed what happened to the Justice Society because there was no Superman. Or, no, I'm sorry, no Flash. Oh, not Superman, it was Flash. In the last great war of men, a society almost came together. But they were not powerful enough. They needed someone faster, and so they fell. So there was no Flash for them. And I don't see any Alan Scott either, which was interesting. 2 decades ago, our first encounter with life from beyond the stars proves fatal to an entire city. So what happened to Metropolis as Clark came down? Because looks like Metropolis was pretty much so taken out. And then what happened with Hippolyta? There is interesting.
Yeah, I want to know who actually ordered the death. How did that come about? I'm holding on to the fact that it was either Ocean Master or maybe Black Manta or somebody other than Arthur initiated that. But once you get the war started, that was it. It just, everything snowballed beyond that. It was that one initial action. Who made that initial order? Who put the kill out there first? And that's what I want to see, because I'm holding on to the fact that there's going to be some trickery involved. And I think that learning the truth is what's going to turn Arthur back to being a little bit more himself. Bring back the honorable king of Atlantis, where he realizes, I've been played all this time. I have to make this right. Oh, wait, there's a chance to make this right? Okay, I'm in. I think that's what's going to bring it about.
Now, Tracy zaps back to the hive, the base, and sees that this group that Dr. 13 is a part of have this endgame protocol. And they have this device that we've been talking about that's targeting the Amazon-occupied UK and Atlantis. And to the point where they're willing to end, 110?
110 million
118 million lives total for this one. And we're seeing, August General in Iron, Red Star of Russia, Ra's al Ghul, we're seeing Dr. Light and people from Checkmate. And just the amount of people that are involved, even people who are traditionally we consider bad guys, and Osiris, all sitting there and having a role in what happened here. So it is kind of, what would be considered good and evil in our world is kind of a gray area in this world. I loved the rationalization that some people were saying yes, some people were saying, and how close a vote that would be.
Yeah.
And how do you go ahead when your vote is that close to do that? It's not a unanimous vote.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. With something like this, you need more than just we won it by one. You need to convince more than just the base people, because August General in Irons would never go for this. You'd never be able to sway him over. And I love even how he explains it. There's there is nothing honorable about death from the sky. No. And he is rigid, set, in his ways. I think, maybe Red Star of Russia, maybe you could, convince him to come back over. A couple of the other people, a couple of the other no's, I think possible. Now, Dr. Light kind of surprised me that she voted yes. But we don't know what this doctor has been through.
Yeah, a very different person than the one we've seen there.
And I like the fact that Ra's al Ghul is a younger version of himself.
Right. Possibly because he didn't have to deal with, fighting Batman for years. I don't know, maybe that provided an opportunity for him to stay younger. So I don't know.
He didn't have Batman destroying all his Lazarus pits.
Right.
Because didn't Bruce go after a lot of those Lazarus pits and destroy them?
Yes.
So without that happening, he's able to have free access to his pits, get young again, keep the baby face going.
Now, Tracy, seeing her go up with her powers and seeing just how powerful she is was really terrific here. She took down, all these people, including Osiris, by making him, lose his powers at that moment. But I love Dr. 13, obviously being the father and knowing his wife and knowing her, had a plan in place just in case way to take her down, with injecting her and putting her out and all that. How driven you would have to be at that point to be faced with your child, having her tell you no, that mom would be ashamed of you and there has to be another way, and yet to be driven to continue on anyway, to the point you're going to kill 118 million people.
Yeah, I just, that does just, kind of like, and even just the calmness that he does it. He's like, why don't you go to sleep? When you wake up, it'll all be over. I'm sorry, Peanut, it's done. Right there, I'm like, wow. That's beyond just your general, survivor's guilt, beyond your general just, beaten man. There's even, and I don't know if that's true, but to me, there's a little bit of coldness and darkness and possibly evil in this, that he's doing. He's not listening to any reason. You said it before, fanatic, level of commitment to this, and that's never ending. That never ends good.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about this Captain Cold, the Citizen Cold, I should say, series that we get to see with him. And we get to see this character. It's by Scott Collins, who's certainly a Flash Universe favorite. And we get to see that this character is not, which we knew from the first issue of Flashpoint, but he's not the character that we thought he was, or the hero that the world thinks he is. And he knows that, and he doesn't care who thinks he is and who isn't. He isn't afraid to work off of intimidation. He isn't afraid to work the system. And it's all to get to some kind of end game as his. And he will utilize people to keep his little game that he's playing going. Like Iris West is an opportunity for him to further promote himself the way that he wants to. And it was interesting to him use that media that way. We get to see Wally in this and what his role is.
Well, his brief role.
Yeah, you taking it that Wally's done for this world?
Well, it's kind of hard to survive when you're frozen solid if you don't have flash speed.
Yeah, or a bat. What is it? Remember the old '60s Batman? Didn't he and Robin have something in the utility belt that could defreeze them?
Freeze, yeah. He doesn't have any antifreeze on him, so I'm thinking, so long, Wally, because this guy doesn't seem like he's that understanding kind of a villain.
Well, and here's the funny part. Citizen Cold, just how vicious he is. Nora, Mr. Freeze's wife, is still alive in this universe. I mean, in the sense that she's in the situation that we've always known she was, where Victor's trying to rescue her. But Citizen Cold is directly responsible for her death in this.
Yeah.
And admits to it. And is killing Mr. Freeze, I should say, for the purpose of, and letting him know along the way, hey, say hi to her because, you're going to be joining her. I mean, whoa.
Yeah, he was fighting to, I got to go save Lauren. It's already too late. She's dead. Say hello to her. It's funny because he is the same pretty much, Freeze that's in our universe, except this time people think he's a good guy and he's got people, pardon the expression, he's got them snowed.
Oh, you mean Citizen Cold?
Yeah.
She said Freeze.
Freeze, Cold, it's both, kind of the same deal. Come on.
Well, and one of the things that I find that's interesting about him, and it's different about him, there's no rogues. I mean, there are the rogues, but they aren't teamed up with him. He's actually put them away to further his own agenda. So they are out to get him for very personal reasons. I mean, it's a point where he's trapped Mirror Master in his own mirrors. The stuff he's done to Weather Wizard, all for him to, take care of his own agenda and to push himself forward. This is a lot more of a self-serving and vicious Captain Cold than we've ever been used to, which we've seen since Barry's come back. A reworking of the rogues where we get to see their real MO, that they really wanted to kill Barry all along. They never liked him. A lot of what we got to see from them in the past was them putting on a show for Wally. So, and especially in the Kinder and Gentler time, that was them kind of playing along with the way things were. But in this universe, it's real clear. Not good guys at all. Mm-hmm. And to the point where they're willing to stab each other in the back. Very interesting story to see it that way. Do you think Citizen Cold is going to survive this whole event?
No, I think he's going to go back to being Captain Cold, and that's going to kind of...
No, you misunderstand me. I mean, do you think he's going to survive the end of Flashpoint?
Oh.
No, there's still going to be a Captain Cold in our universe,
okay.
and there's still going to be a Rogues, and I agree with you on that. So what you just said, yes, thumbs up, we're in sync. What I mean is this guy.
This guy.
Is he, I don't know that he's going to survive 3 issues. He's got a lot of people gunning for him.
Well, the rogues are gunning for him. Iris knows the truth, suspects the truth, so she's going to be trying to expose him. I think everything's going to fall apart for him, and he's going to be on the run. And the thing that always kept him, alive as Captain Cold was the fact that he had the rogues watching his back. this universe, he doesn't have his rogues anymore. As a matter of fact, they want to kill him. So I think Citizen Cold isn't going to survive Flashpoint. I think that's going to be one of the things where the rogues are going to kill him. And whether it's he takes some of them with him when he goes, or if it's where they get him and kill him, and the rogues get to win in this this universe. I think we're definitely going to see that.
Now it's interesting how with Mirror Master's trap, it also has limited his powers. He cannot help Weather Wizard. His near-death state has trapped him in there. If he comes out, he dies. They come in, they die. It's tainted his universe, which that's kind of a different sort of, or at least a further explanation of his link to his mirror world that he crafts. Mm-hmm. It's directly affected by his own wellness. I liked that. It was an interesting little twist here that we got to. I don't know if it's ever going to apply again to our universe, but I really liked that kind of further explanation of what goes on when he goes into those worlds. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm thinking Mirror Master is gonna. I don't think he's ever going to be able to leave there, but I think it's going to be kind of, in a way, he's going to be the oracle for the rogues.
Yes.
He's going to be the guiding, directing, and maybe that could be actually how they kill Cold.
Bring him in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could be one way to do it. Now, we're seeing Cold take a look at his world, and he actually is hiding his own identity. That he's Lawrence Snart, the ex-police officer, son.
Yeah.
And how his sister's still around. These are characters who were in existence in his world. And he's tried to stay under the radar and tried to keep himself hidden, but now it's all coming crashing down around him.
Well, I think that's an interesting way of, again, it's the superhero has the secret identity. And normally the secret identity is to protect the loved ones of the hero. Well, this time it's to protect his scam. It's to keep them from knowing the truth. And again, it's to still the same thing with he has to protect his secret identity, but for different reasons.
Would he take out his sister to keep the secret? Will he rescue her? I don't know what's going to happen there.
See, I'm thinking there's going to be possibly a rescue involved.
Mm-hmm.
But if he goes through with the rescue, it's will he expose himself and what's going on that way? Or is there any way he could do it as Citizen Cold saying, hey, release this person to my custody. I'll look after her. She needs a hero's guidance or something like that. Will he try to go that route? Or again, the rogues. What if they go after they go after Citizen Cold through the sister? Because if the rogues know the truth about him, which I don't know if they do, but I'm guessing Mirror Master maybe knows. Because Mirror Master is able to jump around through the mirror world, so he's able to look in on on Citizen Cold and see what's going on with him. And maybe that's going to be the whole play. Because them introducing the sister wasn't just a way of telling his backstory. I think she's going to somehow be connected with the rest of the story and possibly the downfall and death of Citizen Cold.
Quite possibility, yeah. I mean, it could be. Which would then lead him to an interesting conundrum. How far do I go to cover myself?
Yeah.
I want to talk a little Emperor Aquaman, because that was easily one of my favorite ones so far. I think I'm so Aquaman happy since he's come back. I think the Mira thing, we talked about Mira being that breakout character from Blackest Night, but to see him back again in Brightest Day, and I really enjoyed following him there. So he was a character who I was really looking forward to reading in this, and it really wasn't until this issue came out that I feel so excited that there's going to be an Aquaman. Like, this is something that has me excited for September. Because I know we're reading a different Aquaman here than we're going to be getting when we come back in September. But there are elements of him that are very true to who he is. And seeing him like in this sunken city of Rome and swimming around through these dead bodies, but also seeing him with Vulko and this idea. I guess looking at the early part of this issue, the helmet that Diana's wearing, is that Mira's?
Could be.
Because it looks, I guess, I'm looking at this opening sequence of events, and it's something that I was, right in the beginning of the issue, I was looking at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, did Diana take that and wear it as a trophy?
That would actually make a lot of sense. For kind of a trophy, a taunt, a reminder, hey, I killed your woman. That could very easily be what she's doing. And you look at some of the images of Diana, that does fit an Atlantean helmet.
No. So it looks like the same helmet that Mira was wearing, and I wouldn't be in shock. Going back to what we were discussing a little bit earlier about what if Aquaman is not responsible for the death of Hippolyta, and it was somebody else manipulating all this. What happens when Aquaman and Diana find that out? Diana has to deal with the guilt because I'm assuming she on some level is very responsible for what happened to Mira.
Yeah.
Unless that was escalated by somebody outside. Except she's wearing the helmet, which, the helmet to me is a pretty dead giveaway that Diana's responsible. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I'm now leaning more towards if there was any circumventing, it was on the, if there was any trickery, it was in the death of Hippolyta that started the whole event. Hippolyta dies, Diana kills Mira, the big war really breaks out between the two of them. If they find out that first piece was all a trickery, possibly then there could be peace between the two of them. But it would be a difficult piece and it would be an uneasy piece.
What really bothers me is these doggone Amazons and their tomfoolery. They're known for being tricksters and little imps. And we're seeing that going on in this particular... No, I'm kidding. I loved seeing Geoforce in this.
Yeah.
And how he was utilized. Because a lot of this plays off of the character, the ruler that we saw in Markovia, making alliances like he did with New Krypton. Now he's willing to make alliances with the Atlanteans, for the purpose of helping his own people. And he does it for noble reasons. Looking at what's going on with the Amazons, he's looking at the situation and saying, it really would be better for my people to have an alliance with Aquaman's people. Not realizing that he was going to be manipulated and therefore used as a weapon. Yeah. I saw him somehow, being turned on in this. Not so soon, though. Like, I saw the test being what it was, a test. And how that was all going to play out, and then Mira coming to the rescue, and then, it was a whole thing for forging an alliance there, building some trust from an intense moment. I dug all that. But I did not see him being captured. And I wonder if that was something that came out of Mira's death.
See, I don't think so. Initially Mira's setting him up. This has been... They were planning on using him from the get-go. With Mira's death, then that was the escalation.
But I guess what I'm saying is, I think when Mira initially did what she did, and they were, I agree with you, there was some manipulation there to build a what could have been a positive relationship there. But I'm wondering if that caused Aquaman to become so bitter and so vengeful that he turned on an alliance that he had with Markovia, with Geoforce, and ended up using him in a way that... Because I do agree it's a relationship of convenience that we're seeing developed here, but I'm guessing the capture of Geoforce specifically came out of Mira's death. Where he's like, now I'm going to use anybody and everything in a way that I can to make the world pay for what happened. And how this surface world has just destroyed my realm, and my love. Because he really was somebody that he looks at his world as a separate one and surface dwellers as a separate one. And he's going to war now with the surface world, not just Diana? Or is it that he's willing to use, am I wrong on that, and he's willing to use Geoforce to target the Amazons only? Where do you think he stands?
My initial thought was he's using it's by any means necessary as his mindset and his logic. Initially he was probably going to just try to steal the powers or recreate the powers, not actually kidnap him and throw him in the tank and physically use him that way. But with Mira's death, that just took everything to a whole new level. Right. And that just kicked it up a notch, and that was why the double cross. I don't think they were planning on double crossing him the way they did when this was first getting laid out, when Mira was first alive. But once Mira died, that was it. It completely changed him. And that's, that was his turning point. That was his ruthless trigger, if you will.
And I agree with that. It's interesting. Do you think he's just targeting the Amazons, though? I guess that's my real question here.
Right now, yes.
Because he took out Rome first. Because we're looking at New Themyscira and the area that's there. And it doesn't, I guess if you're looking at the map, it's the Amazon Atlantean war zone. And New Themyscira is not part of Rome.
Well, New Themyscira was England.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I guess with these initial tests that he's doing, and I guess they're tests, he attacked Paris, he attacked Rome first, then Paris. I don't know if he attacked anywhere else. But why those targets, and why not New Themyscira right from the start?
I took it that he did attack New Themyscira, but because Terra is on Themyscira, she was able to protect them. So the first hit, misses and takes out that.
Okay.
Second hit takes out the other one. So every time he was going after Themyscira, and he was just tweaking the weapon, but Terra is protecting it, but only, instead of protecting it, deflecting the energy, and that's what's causing all the Europe around England to sink.
Oh, wow.
That's how I'm reading this.
See, I didn't take it as deflection during those moments. I get what you're saying. I don't know that's necessarily wrong. I don't know that I'm convinced that it's definitely deflection, but I agree that there's the possibility that that's what's going on here. Another part of me took it, though, is he isn't just attacking them. He's attacking a whole bunch of areas. Like, he's just kind of fed up with the service world in general. I don't know.
Well, you think about Booster Gold. Mm-hmm. When he first arrived, they think, oh, this is the preemptive strike to the invasion. And he hasn't hit America yet. He hasn't fired any shots on America. They're just preparing for it, and they're getting ready for the attack that he's going to have against them. So he may or may not have all along planned on doing that. They could very easily, after he gets the Amazons, he could very easily say, okay, leave me alone and I won't kill the rest of you. Or he could say, depending on who his advisors are. He gets the, Ocean Master wants, to destroy all the world and have him do it. Say, hey, let's sink everybody. It's only a matter of time before they attack you. Let's drop, drop it on the rest of them now.
The sooner his geopulse brings down our enemies, the better. So it does seem like Ocean Master is manipulating things for the purpose of bringing down the world so he can rule it.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be, he did the double cross. It was Ocean Master who started all of this. Just because, and I'm saying him just because he's always been a villain, so he's always been a double crosser. I don't think he's going to be, in this world, a good guy.
Who, Ocean Master?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. He isn't a good guy in our world either.
Yeah, I don't think everybody else is being tweaked. He's like, oh, really a good guy and loyal to Aquaman. I don't see him being that way. Just because of everything that's been in the past with him.
Secret 7. Now, this was an interesting book. I didn't know what to expect from this one. I didn't know what the role of this book was going to be. Definitely a group of people that was introduced in Flashpoint #1.
Yeah.
As part of that council of heroes, so to speak, of the world, kind of gathering together to deal with the Aquaman and Wonder Woman situation, recognizing that the battle between those two is going to eventually affect everybody. And that they have to do something. It's very reminiscent of what happened in things like World War II, where you've got powers, groups of people and countries that are outside of the main event that are taking a look at the worldview and saying, whoa, the atrocities that are happening here are worldwide affecting. They are going to reach into our world. What stance do we take? And the heroes don't know what to do here. So I've made an interesting connection to that to World War II. And that, you can do that in any kind of war where you're on the outside looking in. But it was an interesting connection there because of just how huge in epic scope the war had become and how many lives were being lost of innocence because of the fact that they were in the middle of this.
Yeah, this was one of those with the magic books and just I didn't have any type of strong connection or knowledge of who these people were, that when I read it, I was like, okay, this is kind of weird and kind of curious, but it took me multiple read-throughs before I really could even come up with an opinion on the title itself. It's funny you picked this one because I'm still unknown what the heck's going to happen here, where this is going to connect, where this is going to tie into the overall. And it's funny because the reaction kind of you get and the reaction I'm seeing, I see it as an interesting connection to Flashpoint, but I'm not really seeing too deep beyond that.
Well, this is one right now that clearly is development of how Secret 7 came together. So, this is definitely something where I don't look at this as it's not expanding on the Flashpoint story in the sense that we're going to see big Flashpoint reveals, where I think Emperor Aquaman and the world of Flashpoint and stuff like that are showing characters who are going to be pivotal to the main event. Now, I do think the Secret Seven are going to be pivotal to the main event, but I think this book is going to be highly focused on who are they and how did they come together. So we're seeing the genesis of the first two characters coming together here that will lead into the development of Secret Seven. Like Black Orchid, do you know who that character is?
Who?
Black Orchid. They showed her briefly with Shade.
Yeah, not really.
Okay. See, these are characters who I'm familiar with. Shade, I'm less familiar with than Black Orchid, but I've read a couple different, including Vertigo, with Black Orchid, so I'm familiar with the character. I am familiar with Shade, but not. I haven't read everything with Shade, so it's a character that they're pulling out characters that I've known of from DC's past, and obviously, we're going to some of Shadow Pact now too with all this. But it is interesting to see how he's being pulled as kind of a power source and trying to be manipulated in all this.
And I kind of wonder if we're going to get connections between them and Tracy 13.
I think that's going to be
magical universe.
I think that's going to be a huge connection. I think you're 100% correct there. We're going to see a lot more of the magic universe of DC being explained and explored and made cool again through all this. Because I do think it's especially with getting like a Justice League Dark.
Yeah.
When we come back, I think this is just going to be kind of a re-explanation as far as why the magic universe is cool. I do agree with you that this one right now, I'm a little confused as to, not in a bad way. I think it's what we've talked about in the past when we're dealing with characters that we're not as familiar with, especially in this world now. We don't know how these players connect.
Yeah,
they've shown that they're in this world clearly. We're seeing how people are trying to get a hold of the most powerful magic users for manipulating for their own purposes. But we haven't quite seen what brings them together to be a group and then what ultimately leads them to be a part of that superhero council. And I think that's what a lot of this is going to be. Explanation, prologue, backstory, that's going to take away the confusion that we have by the time we're done.
Yeah. We have basic knowledge of characters like Aquaman, Batman, Wonder Woman. We have this basic knowledge that we're like, okay, little tweaks here, changes in the character. With these characters, you really don't have that base, so you have to learn about them, but you're not only learning about them, you're learning about an alternate version of them. So it's kind of a hard connection, too. The Frankenstein one had the same thing, where the character was around, in Seven Soldiers, and he's been around, I think he made a couple appearances in Freedom Fighters, but it's you have pretty much a good understanding of who and what Frankenstein is in the DC universe, and what he's like in this series is very similar with just little tweaks and changes to it. So it's kind of a comfortability versus what's being told in the story. They got to give us the background, but they also got to advance the story on because there will be a connection to the Flashpoint. So it's a very delicate balance they got to go with on this one. Whereas with the Batman story, it took a one-page flashback for us to see that Thomas attacked the criminal, and we're able to fill in the rest in our head. We didn't need to see the rest, and we can continue on with the story. With this one, you have to give us the background, what happened, what's different, all within the story. So I think a title like this is going to be a harder story to, for them to tell.
So Cyborg recruited Shade to gather a group of people together, a Secret Seven, for the purpose of helping to deal with Aquaman and Wonder Woman. So we're seeing that Cyborg really has a major leadership role in that he's saying, and obviously Shade's somebody that he knows in this world well enough to say, hey, I need your help here. We need to gather a group of people together because we need to go to war here. So interesting to see that this character is... I want to see who he's recruiting. I want to know who the seven are. And I think that's part of where the mystery is of this story. I don't know confusion's the right word I would use for this. It's clearly the building of a mystery of, okay, we know who Shade is and what his role is in this universe. Cyborg called on him. We know that people are putting obstacles in his way that are... And people are thirsting for... his changing man abilities, the things that he's able to do, and they want to stop him from his ultimate end game. That is also, through this whole situation, led him to come face-to-face with the Enchantress, who has a duality thing going on here between her and June Moon, who is, I'm guessing, her original alter ego. I'm curious to see which one of those two is really a part of the Secret Seven. Or if both are members. Yeah. I would say we're both thinking the same thing. I don't know that that's the case, though. But I'm with you in the sense that I'm confused about this, but in a way that isn't negative. It's with any mystery, I feel like this has given me an interesting introduction. I want to see where it goes. I wouldn't want all of the minis to be crafted this way. This one's working to me because it felt different. I liked this one. I'm not through the roof yet, but it's only because I think they've dangled a carrot in front of me. But it was enough of a carrot that I want to know more. Where are you at on this one? Did you like this one?
It's one of the things you said perfectly was like it's the mystery that's unfolding. So I'm not going to say I didn't like it. I'm not going to say I liked it. I need more information, more of a story before I can say yes or no. If I had to pick, would I get the second issue after reading the first issue? Yes.
Okay.
Because there, as I said, I recognize it's a very delicate way of telling the story because we know so little about them. They have to give us the backstory, but they have to continue the advancement of the story. So the technical writing aspect of the story, I do say, I like that. That's a nice balance there. Just the content of the story, I don't know the characters enough yet to say, oh my God, I hope they continue on this character, in the next universe. I want more of this. I want more of this character. I want to see what happens to them, after September. I'm not at that point with these characters just because I don't have a comfort level with them.
It's a pretty book. I mean, you got Perez, Blanco, Koblish, and Smith on the art duties. And I mean, it looks great, and it was well written. So I mean, I'm into it. I agree with you in the sense that out of all the titles, I think it's because, and it's definitely because it's a mini. I would definitely, no matter what, continue reading it because I would want to get to the end game of the story.
Yeah.
But there was enough in the first issue that, like, let's say I only picked up the first two and I didn't pre-order 2 and 3, I would go to the comic shop and pick up issue 2 because I want to see where it's going. There was enough in here for that. I'm not just going through the motions doing that. The issue drew me in enough for that. I would like to go back and reread the whole thing when it's done. I'm talking about the 3 issues are done because I have a funny feeling I'm going to have a lot better feel of all the characters as I go through and a lot more attachment. I do think it goes back to, though, these are characters I'm not as familiar with. That my exposure to Enchantress was from Shadow Pact.
Yeah.
And I loved her in that series, but this is definitely a very different Enchantress. Shade, I know loosely, so I do think that's affecting part of what I'm saying right now. But I do think that's one of the things that I'm enjoying about Flashpoint is getting to know some characters that maybe I haven't before and seeing how they fit into the world. So it's an interesting series. I'm glad not all of them were crafted this way, but I did like that this one felt different. I do think it was a selling point on this one for me, was that it felt different.
Amen.
Trying to think, do we want to talk about this Deathstroke one a little bit?
What we can talk about, definitely. I'll always talk about Deathstroke.
And the Curse of the Ravager. It's Jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Bennett and John Dell. I mean, it's this was a very well crafted series. Because it's funny, we talked about him and his appearances in Flashpoint, but we didn't really talk about his feud. Because I briefly mentioned Travis Morgan, who was on the Skartaris, his boat. So I guess what we're looking at right here is Travis Morgan never went to Skartaris?
I'm taking it that he did, but Skartaris got discovered and or flooded out, or when this whole war of Aquaman and Wonder Woman popped up, it pulled from Skartaris, came to the surface world.
And I could see that as a possible. I'm not sure. I don't know how that's all going to work out or go, but I did like this whole kind of pirate story where you would see people that are trying to, make profit, give themselves a element of power. We see this in Gotham all the time. Penguin is really good at doing this in Gotham, and it's not. I'm overgeneralizing when I say that, but it's cool when we see him in like the Iceberg Lounge, kind of playing all sides and using everybody in that sense. And I see very much what's going on here, these pirates who are taking advantage of everything that's going on around them and finding a way to profit, finding a way to give themselves power positions. And we're going to see them from time to time going toe-to-toe with the big players because circumstances are going to put them in that. I mean, we see it in this, that circumstances are putting them gradually in this position. But he's looking for his daughter, Rose, as he's searching for on this one. And that's his constant quest to try and find her. Now, is this the same one, like, he's looking at her longingly, I will find you. This is a father who seems to love his daughter.
Well, he always had a weird way of expressing his love towards his children. It was one of those, and he's a psychopath and he's a killer, but he's not a crazy psychopath. He has just, you think about just how he dealt with all his children. He always wanted them to be better, and in a sick and twisted way, he was trying to make them stronger and survive in the world. Now, it's wrong how he was going about it, but there was always a way of an affection that he always had for the kids, for any of his children. So, but it's tempered with just his nature of who he is, and it's tempered with the fact that he is a killer. He is a hardened killer who will do what he has to. So, that amount of anger, that amount of evil, if you will, can it still feel love? And that's why I always think, he's such a cool villain, and he's such a cool character that he has he has the ability to swing the emotional spectrum that he does. And this right here is a prime example of showing that character. He's got the moments where we got the package, it's, wait, this isn't Rose, bam, and he really just, kind of loses it a little bit, and a couple people die because of, that wasn't the correct target. So
we see him recruiting people like Icicle, Clayface, Sonar, and it's clear that he's not as comfortable with surrounding himself with the metas, but will take them on. I like the idea when he was the captain of the ship who's saying, "Okay, I've lost crew members. You have a choice: either join my crew or you die." Very pirate-like in his presentation, and interesting way to build loyalty through fear. Saying, hey, I'm going to be benevolent to you here. Hey, you were on here. Understand you were part of the other opposing crew. I'm giving you an out. Do you want it? And a very interesting point that, and what else would you do in those situations? Very strange place to see Clayface, but I loved it. I liked seeing characters where you didn't expect them.
Yeah, well, and it's funny you mentioned just with the pirate code, and that's actually what they did back in the day.
Sure.
They gave the chance to join up with the crew, or they died. And I like how he's under no illusion that these aren't people who are loyal to him who would die for him. He knows if they had the chance to stab him in the back, they will. So, but he's just got to be that much better because he knows how good he is. He knows what he can do, so he's able to handle the situation. Again, another prime Deathstroke, personality. We've seen it currently in Titans, where he's dealing with all those people who could very easy double cross him, who he planned for double cross from some of them. I can see that same person that's in the current continuity being this person right here.
Palmiotti and Bennett worked together on with Justin Gray on Hawkman during that run. So to see this team of Palmiotti and Bennett together again on this Deathstroke series was, for me, I remember like, wow, they really understand each other and how to deliver their story. This is working really cool. I love seeing the Aquaman moments where Aquaman kind of invades and I mean, Deathstroke's not dead here, right? We know that.
Come on, it's Deathstroke.
But how is he going to get out of this one? And what is his metahuman presence like in this one? Well, and here's the question: is that Deathstroke or is it Clayface?
Well, I'm going to guess it's Deathstroke because of the blood.
Right.
With the blood splatter. I couldn't imagine Clayface would be that in tune to keeping the illusion going that he would spew blood.
Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to see how it goes. But, I mean, that was one thought that entered my head, was maybe it's not Deathstroke at all. And he had planned for this, knowing that he was going to be boarded.
Which wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you. If that was the case, that would be something Deathstroke would do, and I wouldn't have an issue at all with it. Saying, again, I would probably be saying, classic Deathstroke. We haven't lost his personality. He's still the same guy he was, here as he was then.
Because he knows something's coming.
Yeah, well, once he realized where exactly they were, because that's at the connection directly to Flashpoint 2, was that ending sequence. So he knew they were about to be boarded. He knew trouble was coming. So he would have a chance to set up and do a little kind of rope-a-dope thing. And
not that it matters at all, but he doesn't actually speak at all after he tells everyone to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, Clayface is proven that he's capable of fully taking on the illusion.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. I'm like, well, Deathstroke didn't speak at all, so maybe it is Clayface. I don't know. I might be 100% wrong on that, and I'm comfortable with that because I'm not 100% sold on that. But it was something that in my second read-through, when I hit the end, I'm like, I wonder if that's Clayface. Because it would be kind of a cool use of that character to to kind of do a swerve on Aquaman
Yeah.
versus having Deathstroke hurt in their initial battle. So I don't know. I'm very curious for the second. This is one right out of the starting gate.
Yeah.
I'm into the whole pirate story thing anyway. So to see that be a part of this universe, especially when you've got one of the big players in it is water-based in Aquaman, this was something that grabbed me right from the starting gate.
It had me at ahoy.
Is there any of them that we missed? I think we...
Well, a couple things just about the...
Oh.
I know we talked about Batman, but
and
there's
Abin Sur we also have to quickly discuss.
Oh, yeah, Abin Sur. But a couple things with the Batman one. One of the things that I thought was wonderful was the usage of Gordon and the usage of Penguin in this, especially changing around Gotham where, again, it was another prime example of what would happen if Thomas was there, not Bruce. They privatized the police force. Gordon knows that Thomas Wayne is Batman, and I'm taking it that Penguin knows as well. And Penguin is one time, an arch nemesis of Batman is in this universe an ally of him, and to be honest, it kind of fits the Penguin. I could see him, allying himself, and this is a very powerful man. He can do his thing. He's kind of has a little hands off. Attitude with the police. He's in good with the security. He's in good with Batman. This is a prime position for a Penguin to be in, and because Thomas is vicious enough and hard enough that he would keep someone like the Penguin in line. Where because Bruce was always more benevolent, even though he was a hero based on fear, he still didn't kill. He still didn't go beyond limits. Penguin, Thomas put the fear of the Bat in Penguin, and he's instead a questionably loyal, partner in this in his war against crime. And I think that is just another great usage of this universe to kind of tweak the characters, but still keep them the same. Jim Gordon's doing this because he wants to protect and serve Gotham, because he wants to do the right thing and help the innocent, help the weak. Penguin's doing it because he wants the power, he wants the money, he wants the position of influence. So again, little difference of characters, but still connected to what they were, and I love that about this story.
Let's play house. Since there's three of us, somebody gets to be the daddy, somebody gets to be the baby, the mommy. We'll have fun. What if the Joker is Martha?
No.
We don't see up close, and they're talking about playing house with three, daddy, mommy, baby.
Oh my God.
I'm not saying I'm sold on that. I was hitting at the end though, and I'm like, ooh, what if there's a twist with the Joker? What if it's not our Joker?
That thought never entered my head. But I'm loving it.
Is she dead?
That's the thing. We don't know what happened to her. We know Bruce is dead, but they've never said in any of the issues if she's dead as well.
Because we see there were two fires. There were two shots fired. Bam, bam. So there's two bullets. Did both of them hit Bruce?
See, initially when I read everything, I thought, Bruce and Martha died.
I did too. So believe me, I'm not 100% sold on anything. I'm with you. We're totally in sync. I don't know. I don't know what's driving this. It'd be interesting to see how this goes. Also, we've got to talk about Harvey Dent a little bit.
Yeah.
Does Harvey know? Harvey knows obviously what Wayne's doing as far as that he's crafted this little control over the crime.
Yeah.
This tentative arrangement that he's got going. Does he know about Batman? I don't know, but he's certainly smart enough to figure it out.
I took it that it's kind of like the Gordon in our present universe where he doesn't know exactly, but if he stopped and thought about it, he would figure it out.
Agreed.
I don't think he's in on the inside with them.
So I don't know how this is all going to play out, but I'm definitely intrigued. And let me clarify, too, I'm not 100% sold on my theory. It's funny that we missed talking about that book. I think because we were talking so casually about Batman throughout our discussion of Flashpoint number 2, but I really enjoyed Azzarello and Risa writing this. It actually has me excited for, in a weird way, Wonder Woman, just because how much I enjoyed his crafting of Batman in this world. So, and two very different characters, but I really liked how this felt very Batman in its presentation. Mm-hmm. Even though it's Thomas and it's a different sort of world, it still felt like a Batman book. So it really was very well written.
And it's funny because a couple of the sequences here, I really saw from the Batman Beyond cartoon, and as well as the comic, just the rendering of the old Bruce, I see a similarity to this character.
Yeah.
Just the physical layout, and I thought that was kind of a neat thing.
Now, we got to talk a little bit about this Abin Sur book as well, because this is one that I found very interesting, too.
Yeah.
First of all, getting to see him explored so in depth, but also getting to see, the relationship that they both have with Abin Sur's sister, and how that affects their own relationship, and how the two of them are debating over, things like what would she feel about their paths? Who would she be proud of? Who would she be ashamed of, and why? And seeing them connected in that way. Sinestro really lurks. I just watched, and I'm not going to spoil any of it. In Emerald Knights, Sinestro's in it, and we get to see this Sinestro right here is in Emerald Knights, because I think this character's been so defined when he was a Lantern that I think you get to see him carry himself a certain way when he's a Lantern that isn't so far of a stretch from the character that we see when he's the leader of the Sinestro Corps. He's a very well-defined character, and I loved these moments where we do see from him his certain belief in a certain code and a certain element of what he believes is right, and that he understands things a little bit more than other people. But, finding out Kilowog was dead and stuff like that in this universe, I was really deeply interested to see what the relationship would be like with these two. Because looks like Blackest Night happened in this world, but not only did it happen in this world, the Black Lanterns overran the universe, and they're still out there. Like, it never ended.
Yeah, Blackest Night's still going on, and they're actually talking about pulling the life, the White Lantern from Earth now, because Earth's is no longer a safe storage place for it. So I thought that was a cool kind of connection we're seeing, because there was no Hal, because there was no John, no Kyle, no Guy, in with this Green Lantern Corps, they weren't able to defeat Blackest Night, because and I thought that was kind of cool.
When the Guardians are taking a look at what's happening in Paris and stuff like that and happening on Earth, and you see Wonder Woman versus Mira, notice that Wonder Woman doesn't have the helmet on.
Well, and neither did Mira have her helmet. She had her tiara.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, in that moment, I just thought it was interesting that we do end up seeing her later on, and I wonder if during the battle somehow Mira lost the helmet if she had it on. I don't know.
I'm thinking that, I like your idea that was Mira's helmet, that Wonder Woman's wearing it now as a trophy.
Right.
I like that theory, and I think that makes perfect sense.
Now, here's an interesting part with Earth's heroes all being against each other. The major forces of Earth all being so in turmoil, and the Black Lanterns coming to Earth. Is there any way for this universe to survive?
No. You think about how much it took to defeat the Black Lanterns. It took all of Earth's heroes working together, and there's no way they're going to work together to deal with the Blackest Night. And that's why the Guardians are saying Earth's done. It's over. There's no hope for that planet. And it's, again, you look at with the Guardians, how they want to repress and just be emotionless and see the emotions as being the weakness. In this situation, it's kind of is true. If you hold on to sentiment and you hold on to that, well, maybe they'll survive. No, you got to cut your losses. This is if the White Lantern falls, if they get more power from there, they may never stop them. They have to get the White into Oa, into protection, and maybe then the Green Lanterns can start repelling the Black Lantern and Manhunter menace.
It's interesting to see Abin Sur taking on the role of like what we've seen with Hal Jordan, questioning the Guardians. The loss of his sister affecting her, that's one life, but such an important life. And if she had lived, his speculation over what that might have meant for the universe. Might it be a different place because she was there? Can the death of one... And we've seen, actually, as readers of this series, how deaths of people like Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent not landing where he should have, different events, the death of Hippolyta. These chain reactions have caused Earth to be a very different place. You got Abin Sur looking at this world and going, the Guardians are like, get the White Lantern out of there, and that's the big priority. The people are irrelevant. They're seeing Earth as a lost cause. And him saying, wait a minute, it's this kind of attitude that, is why my sister's not around. We need to protect life and be a part of, if I can do both, I should do both. And we see him in Flashpoint #1 taking on the role of saying, hey, I will do what I can to help you protect your borders and to keep a tentative peace on this world, because he feels that it's important for there to be a peace on Earth. So he's willing to get involved in that cyborg plan if there's a way for it to bring some stability to the planet. And I liked him in that role. This issue explained to me more what he was really doing in Flashpoint #1. So I loved reading this because I thought it added something to his appearance in the first issue of Flashpoint. I don't know if you got that same vibe from this, but it did for me. Gave me a really big understanding of what he was really trying to do there.
Oh, yeah, and I agree completely, especially seeing when he basically told the Guardians to go pound salt.
Yeah.
They said, no, just get us the white entity. It's like, no, all life matters. And that was, again, it was a cool, heroic moment that, with Abin Sur, that this is what he stands for. He's not about to sacrifice, 600 million, billion,
6 billion, no, over 6 billion is what he scans the Earth and says, how many lives are there? Over 6 billion. So he's got to look at that and say, whoa.
Now, when he's flying into Earth to extract the white entity, do whatever he's going to do, and he gets blasted from the ground, is that the Indigo Tribe, or is that Star Sapphire?
Boy, I don't know.
Because I wonder because how with the Indigo Tribe, how they have the Abin Sur in their whole thing, what if the Indigo Tribe gets tied in from Flashpoint, and if this is all how the creation, it's not the Abin Sur of our old Earth, it's this Abin Sur that is the connection to the Indigo Tribe.
I don't know. Well, no, I don't think it would connect that way. I think we might be seeing a different connection between them there. I was taking that if it was going to be any energy, it would be Indigo, except why would they be going after him? Or maybe they're looking at the Guardians as being without those emotions and having that. I don't know. I guess that did leave me with a lot of questions at the end. So I don't really, I honestly, I'm not going to pretend that I have a good answer for you there. I really don't. I was taking it that it was Indigo too. So I'll go on that end. I didn't get the Star Sapphire vibe because of the color.
Yeah, I just I didn't know if maybe there'd be a tweak or coloring, or if my eyes are just bugging.
Well, and that happens sometimes. Well, no. But I mean, when you said that, I wasn't like, because the Star Sapphire color would be much lighter in my eyes. But you could be wrong. Maybe it was a tweak. Maybe you could be right. I'm saying you could have been right. Maybe that's an issue too. The truth is, I don't know, and I don't even know that we could be totally wrong on it being another core. Yeah. I mean, it could be just some other energy weapon, but. It seems likely with Atrocitus showing up. At least I liked the way that because I did after that. I got more focused, I think, on what Atrocitus was going on with him, and what does this mean for Sinestro? Because Sinestro is trying to get information from him about this prophecy of the Flashpoint. So their world has a prophecy about this.
Oh well, they had the prophecy of the Blackest Night.
Sure.
There's something with them.
So and it would be Atrocitus. Remember, he was the big player during all that. Who knew? And a lot of the stuff leading up to War of the Green Lanterns was because of prophecies that Atrocitus knew about. So this is interesting. And what does this mean for Sinestro? Is Sinestro going to be an agent of helping facilitate Barry Allen? Or is he going to be on the other side from this prophecy? I don't know.
See, I take it that Sinestro is going to be a good guy, going to be a hero of this whole mix-up, because it wasn't really until they started looking at how he's dealing with his world, where he's using fear and just basically just how Sinestro was running things, that they branded him a villain. Up until that point, he was a respected member of the Corps. So at this, there's no one looking into that on him. He is actually, doing his job here, where he's trying to get information. He's going to maybe save the universe, fix some stuff. And this is another one of those cases where I'm curious to see if he finds out that if the universe reverts back to normal, he is no longer a Green Lantern. Will he make the sacrifice as well? Or will he say, I don't know if I want that?
I don't know. I'm going to be curious, very curious to see where this goes. I'm glad that they're not just exploring the Green Lanterns, that we're having some of the other colors brought in. And it's a lot to cover in 3 issues, so I'm assuming we're going to see samplings of things. But I was surprised to see how events that we're used to our heroes defeating being something that, because our heroes are not banding together, they affect this world very differently. And no Hal Jordan, no John Stewart, no Kyle Rayner, no Guy Gardner drastically affected things like Blackest Night. So those are things that I'm curious to see the Hal Jordan mini.
Yeah.
To see if we get to see any of the other Lanterns that we're normally used to make any appearances.
Now, do you think Hal's going to get his ring?
No.
And become a Green Lantern, or is he going to stay a civilian? Or stay Hal Jordan?
Maybe at the end of the Abin Sur series, and a Hal Jordan. Maybe at the end of Flashpoint. I don't know. I kind of like not knowing that. I guess nothing is... I could see it going the possibility that we're going to get Abin Sur all the way through this and see Sinestro. What would it be like if Sinestro stayed a Green Lantern? Or, how is it going to be if Abin Sur has to go up against Sinestro Yellow Lantern? I don't know. I don't know how this is all going to turn out. I like that I don't know. I wouldn't be against any possibility on this. I'm kind of just enjoying the ride there. And I see all those possibilities. I guess I'm being non-committal because I don't really have a passionate feel one way or the other on this, and I wouldn't be against any of those decisions.
Yeah, I know. Every time I throw out a question or I start thinking of something, I'll run it down the line like, oh, that'd be cool. Hey, what about this? And it's, again, the openness, the unknown, but it's not a frustrating, angry unknown. It's the curious and I can't wait for this to come out yet.
I agree with you. That's an excellent way to put it. So I don't know, it was like 8 miniseries, I think, besides the main mini that we talked about. Were there any of those that you're like, they wasn't quite as good as the rest or anything like that? I didn't have that issue. I really liked all of them in their own. Even Secret 7, I know we kind of, that one clearly felt different than the rest to me as far as, but there wasn't any of them that I felt like wasn't worth reading. Yeah,
I definitely, after reading the first issue of all of them, I want to read the second issue. I want to continue on and keep going. Secret 7, as I said, I don't have a comfort with it yet, so... if I had to pick one at the bottom of the stack, that would be that one. But it's not even like on the chopping block because I got to know. I want to. The story itself was well crafted and it was an enjoyable read. I like seeing it and I like the mystery. So I want to know what happens to those characters. I want to know how they connect, how they tie in. I want to see their story unfold. So I can't even say that it was a dislike for it. For me, all of these things are hitting, exactly where I need them to go. It's furthering the story. I feel like I'm getting something else out of the Flashpoint event by getting these minis, and you need to have that for me for these minis, for me to say, yes, this is worth picking them up, because I feel like I'm getting the rest of the story.
Let's actually Booster Gold 45 real quick. 44 and 45. We should probably just talk loosely about them, just because I'm really enjoying Booster being a part of this world, and we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss this book somewhat, because I know next time we're going to talk about Flashpoint, we have the other books to discuss. And it's interesting, without Skeets, he has to do research of his own. Yeah. So we're actually seeing him, I think, grow a lot, having to rely on his own skills to get through this, and recognizing, whoa, this is a huge problem here. And, how do I handle this? He's being hunted down by Doomsday, who's actually being controlled by Captain Atom. That Nathaniel Atom is Captain Atom.
Yeah.
So seeing him have to go up against his former friend, so to speak, in this world, who's hunting him down because he thinks he is an Atlantean. And I get the vibe. I get why you'd look at him and go, oh, he looks like he could be related to Aquaman, and... especially with the fact of the way he's operating right now, I could see why this world would be an issue, where they would be looking at him that way.
Now, the thing I liked was the fact that they're kind of mentally controlling Doomsday.
Yes.
Until the connection gets severed, then you're like, uh-oh, we have a problem now. Doomsday is loose. And that is always a problem when you deal with a creature like Doomsday, when you're dealing with this unknown force, because even they didn't completely understand what his capabilities were and how he comes back stronger the next time, and so they really don't understand anything about Doomsday. So I thought that was a kind of an interesting little plot twist, because Booster knows how powerful Doomsday is, and he knows that he's way out of my league, and how's Booster going to deal with Doomsday now? And I'm curious.
I liked seeing how Booster was picking up traces of chronal anomalies throughout history in this world. Not just one location. He was able to trace, and he said they don't know what to look for. They wouldn't even realize they were there. And I loved when he was talking about Professor Zoom. The girl that he's talking to she was kind of our eyes into it, because she's come back saying, "A teacher? What did he have to do with this?" And I love those moments because it's a natural reaction. She doesn't know who he is. Why would she? Why would that be common knowledge for her in this world?
Now, who is this female?
Don't know.
Okay, I didn't know if she was around in the DCU, and I just don't recognize her. So she's another completely introduction.
Yeah, if anybody knows who she is and I'm missing the boat, please let me know, because I'm not aware of her. I liked her. I liked seeing this character brought in, and I know I'm going to probably feel dumb if she is somebody that I should know, but I'm definitely missing who this one is. I liked her, though. I thought she was great.
Yeah, she's got some type of power, some energy blasting. I was wondering, maybe... because she has the green energy, so I'm trying to think of all the green energy people, but she's Greek, so I'm like, I don't know who she is. I'm like, wow.
Green energy?
Yeah. She's got like a green energy shield when she powers up.
Looking back to see, I didn't remember that being a green energy shield when she was flying away. Maybe I'm blind on this.
It looks green to me.
It's not easy being green. There you go.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Well, you're right, there is kind of a...
Yeah, especially when she blasts Air Force One, you see the energy bolt.
Oh, I wonder if that's the Starheart? Like what Jade and Alan Scott pull off of? Maybe I'm wrong. I could be pulling too deeply from that.
Yeah, well, that was actually... I was kind of wondering if that... But, her name...
I don't know. I didn't recognize her at all. So, if I'm missing the boat on that one, we'll leave that up to our listeners. If somebody knows who she is and what her deal is... Yeah. Be kind of a cool thing for people to call in on and just say dopes.
Yeah, it's Alexandria Gianopoulos. No idea how to pronounce.
Yeah, just pause this real quick just to take a look on the internet, and there's a lot of speculation. I even see some people possibly pointing at her being like Donna Troy or something. I don't know with the green, like you said, Jim, the green powering, if that fits necessarily, but I don't know. I don't know who she is. I've never seen her before, so I'm curious to see who the character is. I just found her interesting.
Yeah, definitely there's something more to her, and it's not just she's not a throwaway. There's going to be some other connection. She's going to come, maybe she's actually going to make the crossover, because we saw in the JLI the cover, it had female dark hair that we thought maybe was Donna Troy. Maybe it's her.
Okay. And with Booster.
Yeah.
On that team, that would make sense. I don't know. Yeah, that could be a first... Well, and Dan Jurgens is writing that.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility that maybe that character would make a crossover. I don't know. Interesting. I wanted to make sure we talked about Booster before we wrapped this segment up, because it's a book that I've been enjoying being a part of this. And it's a book I'm sad to see go, but I'm glad to see the writers staying with the character, which is an interesting transition piece. So I'm glad that Dan Jurgens is going to get to continue writing Booster. And because I wanted Winnick to write that series, but seeing that Winnick's going to be writing other books, I'm happy with Dan Jurgens writing this because I love his Booster. So,
oh, yeah, big time.
I guess when I was always thinking I wanted Winnick on that series, I was thinking that Dan Jurgens would stay on Booster.
Yeah, Booster was one of those series that I was surprised he didn't get to keep his solo series, because he's the time travel guy, and if we're changing time, he'd be a natural, or... Just the concept that is Booster, is something I really dig.
Well, it'd be cool if they launch eventually another Booster series and we get to see him time travel through the changes to that world. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of opportunities there. Although I think it'd be kind of too soon to do that. Maybe early on. I don't know. I would read that. I would be glad to see that. Kind of an interesting way to take a look at what's changed. So good issue so far. There's Flashpoint.
I know.
Are you anticipating this the same way you did? Like, how do you compare this to like Blackest Night, for example, as far as an excitement for yourself? Are you getting the same excitement? Because I am.
Oh, big time. And it's, Flashpoint. I didn't really, it was the lead into it. I was like, oh, okay, because I thought the Flash was a cool character, but I was never, a Flash-a-maniac, so I wasn't always yay. But as this is, once they first started just throwing teasers, and I was like, ooh. And once we've gotten started on it, I am 100% all in with this, going, dang, this is cool.
Yeah, you're echoing my sentiments exactly. So I'm
already thinking when they announced the hardcover of the series, I'm picking that up.
Well, and this is kind of an easy one to collect in the sense that you would collect the minis together, you would collect the main series together. It kind of naturally leads itself to be collected in a certain format. And you don't have to worry about anything really chronologically because these books are crafted in a way. So, cool.
Hey, Sean and Jim. I wanted to get my opinion on the new relaunch. This is Kevin from Omaha speaking. The initial reaction was that I actually hated it. At first glance, it just seemed too different from, especially the rumors of Clark and Lois not being married and the potential shift in the Batman titles. Although I've cooled off quite a bit, I still haven't gotten into it all that much. As a comic fan, it's always been the continuity of the stories that have kept me dragging me back. The de-aging of the characters doesn't really appeal to me. And I don't care much about the renumbering, although, except I think there should be no going back. I mean, we just got to Wonder Woman 600 again after skipping ahead, so... But it just seems a bit too different with the de-aging and all that. But ultimately, all the titles are going to have to prove themselves before I buy them, I guess, because there are other factors, financial, space, backlog that play a role. I mean, it's just 52 titles. That's a lot of titles, and I'll have to figure out what I want and what I don't want. And especially with things that the whole Lois and Clark marriage thing is kind of I've already seen the whole romance going, and Byrne did a good job with the Wonder Woman and Clark issue back in the day, so I really need to see that again. But from what I read, I'm looking at the Lantern titles, Firestorm and GLI particularly as being interest, but I just don't know about the Batman and Superman and all that other stuff. I'll have to evaluate it as it comes in. But and my hunch is that the mysterious woman in the GLI cover is Gypsy, or some other ethnic hero of some sort. I don't know, maybe Global Guardian or something. I don't know. It's hard to say. Or New Blood hero. I don't know. Who knows? But I don't think it's Donna Troy. That's just a hunch. So, well, I just want to get my 2 cents in there. And thanks for the podcast.
Well, you referenced the Byrne stuff, and I loved that. I loved when Byrne relaunched with the Man of Steel, and there was a lot of exciting things going on at that time. But you got to remember, if they hadn't taken a chance then and done some rebooting of Superman, we would have never gotten those stories. So you're actually referencing a reboot that they did back then that you enjoyed back in the day and excited you. So think about what doing something like that could do for a new legion of fans at that time. And, if the stories are exciting enough, they're going to take care of us older fans as well. I'm going to be honest. They have to be considering us. And they have to be considering their current diehard legion of fans in making these decisions. I think you have to find a healthy balance of how do we satisfy this group and how do we attack this group and try to pull them in. And that's a very tough balancing act, and it comes with some risk. And this is a risk. And, risk sometimes for comic fans can pay off huge in the sense that we get exciting, original, fresh, and fun stories. There is the other side of it where it could end up blowing up in their faces. I mean, there is that possibility. But this isn't something that they thought up 2 weeks ago. This is something that they've been working on behind the scenes. We've heard hints and rumors of like the Justice League with Johns and Lee for quite some time. And, there were listeners who were throwing out did you guys hear about the possibility of a reboot? I didn't think this was going to come. I was one of the people that was adamantly saying, oh, they aren't going to do that. That's crazy. That's, nutty talk. And it turns out they were right. So it's interesting to see now that this is actually going to happen. It's a gutsy move. as far as the 52 titles go, take a look at how many titles are currently being published. So, don't worry on that end. Remember, they're relaunching everything. So, that means that they're canceling a bunch of titles too. And what you're going to have to do is you just have to take a look at your budget and say, you mentioned like Firestorm, for example, as being a concept that you're interested in. Well, I mean, you start saying, okay, I'm going to make up a list and here's the titles that I can afford. And, maybe leave yourself some wiggle room for a few titles that you might want to try to see which ones, stick for you. So, I don't know. It's the Superman Lois thing. I've heard rumors about that too. The big problem with rumors is DC's not going to start releasing right now exactly what's going on in Superman's status quo. Because otherwise, why would you read the issue? So they're going to, there's going to be some teases and stuff. But the rumors, we got to be cautious and say the rumors might not tell the whole story. Great example, case in point. Lex Luthor and Lois Lane during Paul Cornell's run. It looked like he was putting Lois Lane with Lex Luthor. There was a big uproar over that. Well, it turns out that Lois Lane was a robot. So that's why I'm saying rumors, while some rumors can be true, sometimes rumors that even are true don't always tell you the whole story. So it's kind of a wait-and-see proposition here and on a lot of this. So I find now that I'm excited by more than I'm worried about, but there are still those sticklers there. Teen Titans is a book right now of mine saying that the creative team has me. I'm a little worried about the premise. But the more there's a great example. The most recent blurb letting me know that Tim Drake was still Robin, that got me more excited for it again. So I don't know. That's a book though. I'm just they're revamping. It looks like Superboy's getting revamped a lot. Kid Flash and Wonder Girl. So a lot of my judgments on that are going to be a wait and see until I read the first issue and see what the creative team's doing. But I'm going to give it a shot because I love the Teen Titans concept. So, and the other things that are hurting some of those things too are I'm enjoying a lot of these current runs. Like the current Teen Titans run, I think is tremendous. I think the work of J.T. Krull and Nicholas Scott on that title is fantastic. So I'm hoping this book will deliver the same quality that we're getting in that. But I am hoping this succeeds for DC in bringing in new readers. I'm hoping that there's things being done across comics, not just from DC, to try and bring in readers from outside of comics. Our sales numbers, I've said on the show many times, way too low for the quality of the comics. And I applaud them for reaching out with the digital apps, only in the sense if they're reaching out to people who aren't reading. Reaching out to us with digital, it's great that the announcements day and date digital, that gives us an option to pick them up digitally. I think that's cool, right? But if they're not doing promotions to try and bring in people, they should be doing promotions of bundling certain issues together for people who maybe aren't currently reading comics from certain websites that you wouldn't expect to see a comic book ad, but might be sci-fi related, might be fantasy related, literature related sites. I'd like to see a promotion done to try and pull in people that would be going to the movies, so to speak, going to see, like Green Lantern and things like that, but maybe aren't reading comics. This Western title that's going to be coming out, the successor to Jonah Hex. I would love to see that site, that advertised on sites that maybe traditionally are for people who read Western novels, because that's a title that I easily can have appeal to any fan of any Westerns. So, stuff like that I'd like to see happening. Just kind of reaching out in areas where maybe you wouldn't normally expect to see a comic book ad and try to get a hold of those audiences and get them reading a comic. Because I think there's a lot of room for a new audience base for comics. I'm not going to pretend that I know the answer. So, I'm throwing out a lot of things here, and they might seem logical to me, and there might be all kinds of logistical reasons why not everything I'm saying is exactly logical or easy to pull off. But I'm hoping that, and I'm not even hoping, I know that behind the scenes they have to be taking a look at what can we do to get a new audiences, what can we do to get people excited who maybe aren't reading our comic books. Obviously they want that audience base. I'm just hoping that they come up with a strategy that will allow them to reach out to those audience bases and hopefully bring them in. And if it's digital that will help bring in some new people to comics, more power to it. I think trying to juggle around the same audience base for these comics, though, is it's going to help to a certain extent, but ultimately it's not going to deliver the kind of bang that they're really looking for. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with this whole thing. I'm excited for the product, though. I think it's going to be an interesting relaunch, and we'll see what's going to happen there. And a lot of it does go back to, at first, I was scared and worried about a lot of this, but the Byrne thing that you mentioned is a great example of why I'm excited. Because I remember that era, and you know, like, well, they're doing what? They're relaunching Superman with Man of Steel. What? I remember that first cover where you saw him, you know, opening up with the opening up of the jacket. It was just a close up of the shirt, you know, being opened, and the S shield there and the Byrne. It was the collector's cover, I think it was. There was 2 covers that was released during the Byrne first issue, and I remember that first one, and there was something special about picking that up, and you know, knowing that big changes were coming for Superman, modernization of Superman. And that can be really exciting and cool for all of us without losing what we like about the character. So I'm hoping this turns into that time. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for the call.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Mark Vickers, the Ziebler from the comics forums. And I was just calling to talk real quick about the Green Lantern movie, Superman 900, and the relaunch coming in September. First, the Green Lantern movie, went to the midnight showing, saw it in 3D. I would highly recommend it. I know some of the critics out there are giving it very poor scores, but it was a lot of fun, well worth the price of my ticket. It had good action, made me laugh, and overall I thought it was a fun movie, so I would give it a recommendation to anybody who laughed. Don't want to spoil anything in it in case this plays before people go and have a chance to actually see the movie. The one thing I would say about the movie is it didn't quite get to the point to where if I wasn't a comic fan, that it would make me want to go and search out and find more Green Lantern stuff to read. Like with the Batman movies or the first Spider-Man movie or the first Iron Man movie, I actually enjoyed those so much, I would go maybe at a library or something, try to pick up a trade and read more to find out about them. This movie was a lot of fun, but I don't think it quite got to that point where if I wasn't a comic fan, that it would make me say, oh, that was a really interesting concept. I'd like to really go see if I can read more, find more. But for the movie and the price of the ticket and just enjoying myself and have a good time, definitely worth it. I would also recommend if you are going to see the movie, see it in 3D. I saw it in 3D, and it is probably the best 3D movie I have seen to date. A lot of the other ones, I felt like they just packed 3D on there to charge you more for a ticket. But this movie, the 3D, I think, really just helped the visual of the movie and sort of gave it that otherworldly space-type movie feel. So one more thing on Green Lantern. I would say, even though it wouldn't make me want to read a comic, I would say that if somebody came up with the concept of doing a Green Lantern Corps TV show, I think that would be great. I was thinking sort of along the lines of how Star Trek was successful, that you could do a Green Lantern Corps show and it be successful. And now that Smallville's gone, I'd really like to have some sort of comic show to watch. So that's my plug for anybody out there who can create TV shows. So on the relaunch happening in September, I've sort of gone through, I guess, the stages of grief and denial, anger, all that stuff, and come around to acceptance. I guess my feelings on it are sort of, I don't really understand why they're doing the relaunch, but as long as, they have a plan with good storytelling, I'll trust them. I would be interested to see when the numbers come out if it pulls in a lot of new readers, and especially if it pulls in a lot of new readers maybe on the digital and not just on the going through the comic book stores to see how that works since they're going to be releasing it digitally. And finally on Superman 900, I didn't get it till the second printing, so I read it, like the whole issue. I did find the part where Superman gave up his citizenship interesting, and I guess the interesting thing I see about it is when I think of Superman, I think truth, justice, and the American way. but I understand in the context of the story that it was written why he would give it up. But part of me still thinks it was a bad idea, which I know all this might be a new point because they're relaunching anyway. But Superman sort of is giving it up, saying it will free him up to be a symbol for hope and freedom for the whole world and not to just be seen as American, because he can be misinterpreted acting on behalf of the American government, is the way I'm reading the story. But the problem I have with that is I think the reason Superman would be seen as a symbol of freedom and hope is partly because he is American, and I mean, I know he's Kryptonian, but he grew up in the home of Jonathan and Martha Kent, two of the most American people. When you think about, good old-fashioned Americans, you think John and Martha Kent. And to me, a little bit, when he's giving that up, it just doesn't make sense, because Superman growing up with John and Martha Kent are what has helped make him that symbol of hope, put him on the right path to be that. So that, to me, I think it was a little bit of a mistake, but maybe it'll get corrected. But I do understand the storytelling reason behind that. One final question, I guess. Still really enjoying Red Robin. A little disappointed he's not going to have his own series, but glad he's still around in the DC Universe doing the relaunch. And the end of issue 24, which if people haven't read this yet, I might spoil something. So the girl at the end of it, who is somehow related to Ra's al Ghul, I think. Do we know her name or know who she is? Did I just miss that? Because I remember at the end of, I don't remember which storyline it is, but, Ra's is setting Tim up to try to produce an heir, and that girl's supposed to be the one who gets it from him, but I still don't really know who she is or, what's that weird power set. So if you guys know anything, I'd be glad to hear it from you. So I really think that's it, and really enjoying comics and comic movies. Go see Green Lantern if you haven't seen it. And, well, I'll get off the phone now. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hey, Mark. I'll start with the Ra's al Ghul Red Robin comments. I shouldn't say Ra's al Ghul because I'm making an assumption. I'm guessing that the girl is a daughter or somehow related to Ra's al Ghul. Only because he's been searching for an heir, and because he's kind of struck out with Bruce. With his battles with Tim, he's gained that same respect for Tim, so I wonder if this isn't more of his... Because he's mentioned in previous issues that he's looking for that heir. So I'm making an assumption there. So I don't know if this has something to do with that or not. No, I don't know who she is. I'm guessing... I don't know if it's the Ra's al Ghul's daughter that we saw back in Ruka's story arc, where we got to see that Talia had a sister, and it was that. I don't know if they're going that route. Or, this could be a new character, and I'm connecting it in the wrong way. So we'll find out what's going to happen there. I don't know who the character is 100%. I'm making some guesses, but I wouldn't say that... I'm not necessarily putting my foot down and saying, this is who it is. I don't really know, is the honest answer. Over on our end, as far as the Green Lantern film goes, I did see the Midnight Show, and we're going to actually be talking a lot about this on next week's episode, so I'm going to leave this, very light and brief. But the Plain Dealer, our paper here, who normally doesn't seem to like sci-fi-ish superhero movies too much, they gave it a B, which I was pleasantly surprised with, because they typically, it seems to be every sci-fi movie gets a C. So, and they're typically ones that I like that get C's. So I was glad to see this got a B. I echo your comments. I'll just say right off the bat, I saw the Midnight Show. I saw it in 3D. Totally agree the Green Lantern effects deserve a 3D. I'll talk more in detail about it next week. We're going to have Myron Rumsey join us again, and Jim's going to be on. And I don't. Jim hasn't seen it yet, as far as I know. So I'm very curious to see what their thoughts are on the film, and if they liked the same things I did, or if they liked it at all. Even it might have been something where maybe they were underwhelmed by it. I don't know. I highly recommend it. I'm with you. I was geeking out. Especially because I was seeing some crazy reviews online for it, and I was like, oh no, I'm hoping this doesn't turn out to be a disappointment. So I think it helped to kind of go in worried about it. I ended up really enjoying it. I agree. Your comments about how this is kind of an introductory film, but isn't necessarily going to do that. That was in the review, actually, in the Plain Dealer, and I'll leave this comment. I do think this is a good launching of a larger story. This is, to me, more like... I'm trying to use Lord of the Rings. I don't necessarily... It's not that kind of epic, but this does feel like it was the starting point to a much larger story versus being an isolated film. It had an ending, for sure, and I definitely recommend staying for the credits because there's, cool little teasers in a cool little teaser in the credits. So definitely make sure you stay for the credits to see that. But yeah, it is one of those where I definitely got the feel like it's going to continue. I feel like the next film is just going to keep building to something very big in the next film. This was quite enjoyable, though, with a lot of big events and all the right characters. And I'm going to stop there and talk more next week. And that's kind of a little teaser blurb for next week's episode, because we are going to talk in depth about it. And for me to go too crazy into it now, we'll make that kind of redundant next week. So I'll stop right there for now and just say you'll get more detailed comments from me next week. I will say, though, the Green Lantern is getting an animated series. I know that's something that was in development. I think it's launching in the fall. I might be wrong on that, but it'll feature Hal and a lot of the members of the Corps. Carol Ferris is supposed to be in it. And I'm hoping that's still going. I haven't heard much recently about it, but that was almost 110%. That was totally greenlighted, and as a part of this whole plan to kind of bring the Green Lantern series out. So there's going to be an animated series. I know that's not what you were talking about. You were talking about a live action series to replace Smallville, and I agree with you. Green Lantern Corps series that's action based would certainly work. I think with a lot of these film series, they're trying to keep the films separate from television. Although the animated series clearly is playing off of the film, in the sense that we're going to have a lot of those characters that we just saw. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything about any other live action DC series that are currently in development, at least far enough along that we can say they're actually going to go to series. Wonder Woman was the last thing I definitely heard about. I know Hawkman is another one they announced as in development. I'm hoping one of these launches because I'm with you. I'm finding a gap coming in the fall of superhero programming, and we've had quite a bit of it lately. With your shows like your Capes and Smallville and stuff like that. Whether you liked them or not, all of them. It was nice to see the variety of different types of superhero programming on television that you can pick and choose from. So I'm hoping something else takes off and gets a shot because it's a great genre to have on television. Just exciting, especially with today's technology. So I'm hoping that gets there. If you want to participate in our show voicemails, it's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. And please feel free to voicemail us about anything, your opinions on anything we say on the show, agree, disagree with us. We always welcome honest and open discussion on the show, so please don't be afraid to do that. Voicemail is definitely our preference as far as if you're trying to contact the show to get information on the program. We're an audio medium, so it's always great to, as you can just hear from these voicemails, it was great to just hear different voices get expressing their opinions. So please feel free to use those. Feel free to call in as often as you want. We welcome that open discussion on the podcast. I want this to feel very community-based, so consider sending us in a voicemail.
Holy caffeine!
I want to once again thank sponsors of the show, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pre-order Flash, The Road to Flashpoint hardcover. It's regularly $22.99, 40% off, only $13.79. Don't forget over at InStockTrades.com, Booster Gold, The Day of Death trade paperback. Regularly $14.99, 38% off, only $9.29. And over at InStockTrades.com, remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support Raging Bullets. Our next episode, we're going green, Jim. We're going to be talking all kinds of Green Lantern stuff. Obviously, we're going to talk about the film. We're going to chat loosely about that DVD release that just came out, Emerald Knights. Talk about some of the Green Lantern gaming that's out there right now. And we'll talk a little War of the Green Lanterns as well. So there's a lot of Green Lantern stuff we're going to be chatting about. Obviously, the main focus of that's going to be this film we've been waiting so long for. So that's going to be the priority on the episode. But, just kind of a casual Green Lantern discussion other than that as well. Cool Green Lantern stuff.
Yeah, it's not easy being green.
Oh, that's right, because it's not that episode. It's okay for you to discuss it now?
Yeah.
Give me a cannon. We will see you next week.
Bye.
space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman.